Hey, it's Conrad Thompson, and you're listening to Something to Wrestle with John Layfield. John, what's going on, man? How are you?
Not too much. Hey, I'm very excited, Conrad. I went to Oklahoma this weekend. I wore a mask. I didn't catch dumbass from what I think. I've been tested, and so I'm very excited.
Man, I'm excited too. We've got a big weekend lined up. I, for one, am looking forward to a little wrestling this weekend. And I don't know that you and I have talked about this. Are you familiar with the Redneck Brawl, John?
No.
Oh my gosh. As just a fun thing to do at some point today, go look up Redneck Brawl on Instagram. They've got a fight this weekend in Johnson City that I think is a tough man contest with men and women, and they're cutting old school wrestling promos, but respectfully, they are some people with some rather thick Southern accents. And I'm saying that sounding like this, and it is tremendous. You will love these promos, John.
I love it. That is freaking great. You know, these old tough men were so popular. You know, that's Butterbean. I've seen Butterbean a lot lately, and the king of the 4-rounder. I mean, the guy would come out there and just destroy people. Those are so fun. And I love the fact they're adding wrestling promos to it, especially in the South.
They've all got nicknames too. Hey man, this is 10 Gauge down here from Kentucky, and I'm gonna put it on your ass. You know, it's just unbelievable. I can't wait to see it. But it's a double header for me because I think this is the first official WWE / AEW, or I got that wrong. WWE / AAA Triple Mania, and Corey Graves is going to be doing color commentary. This to me feels like a really big deal. When I first got into years ago, Wrestle Kingdom had Jim Ross come in for the big New Japan version of WrestleMania to do commentary. And it was my first time watching a Wrestle Kingdom live because for the first time, I actually understood the commentary and I could sort of keep up with what was going on. JR made me a New Japan fan. I've been able to watch AAA for a long time with great English commentary from guys like Dabrowski and others. But goodness gracious, Corey Graves, man, he's one of my favorite announcers. So I'm pumped that Corey Graves is going to be on the call this weekend at Triple Mania 33. It's free on YouTube, by the way. This is not a pay-per-view. It's not a fight. You don't have to find it anywhere else. Just watch it for free this Saturday, August 16th on YouTube. And look at that graphic. I mean, El Grande Americano. How about Dominic Mysterio? One of the most exciting luchadors of all time. I mean, we've got so many fun things on this, but Vikingo, if you've never seen him before, you're in for a real treat. And how great is it that Corey Graves is on commentary? He's my favorite commentator.
Your favorite commentator. I hate to tell you this, but Conan, who's going in the Hall of Fame, I believe this weekend for AAA, is also going to be doing commentary. We'll do a wonderful job. But since Corey's your favorite commentary, you got to have something with him. And I'm proud to announce, Conrad, that I'm going down to Mexico City this weekend. I will be doing commentary with Corey Graves for the entire Triple Mania. I may not be your favorite commentators, but this is the first announcement. This is groundbreaking news. I'm going to Mexico City. I just got the deal from WWE. Not a deal. It's just they asked me to come out new commentary. So I don't know if you call that a deal or not. It's an engagement. It's an appearance, whatever you want to call it. But I'm very excited to go be a part of Triple Mania.
Dude, this is awesome. That's fucking cool as hell. I love that, dude. Like, I mean, I didn't know you were back in the commentary game, but this is a big deal. So
I didn't either. I got a call, and I don't know who all I can say names about, so I don't want to say names without permission. But I got a call from people down there, and talked with and I just text with Jerry Borash this morning, and he said, go ahead and announce it. It's fine. Got a call last week. Said, would you come down and do commentary? And I said, I would absolutely love to. So, I love Corey. Corey, I think, is just fantastic. Moving in the play-by-play chair, he's done a great job at what he's done. Conan, of course, legend of Lucha 11. He's a wrestling legend. But it's going to be a lot of fun down there. You got to watch these shows. Conrad, you know them. You know the Lucha and all they do at Triple Mania. There's 22,000 seats in this arena, and they're going to be full. This is going to be a lot of fun, and they're streaming it on YouTube, from what I understand. So you can just get on YouTube and watch it.
It's totally free on YouTube. Listen, if you've never seen a Triple Mania, I encourage you to make this the first one. I was fortunate enough to go to one back in October of 2022 in Mexico City, and it was a mask match where Penta won the match. But as Viano was losing his mask, I looked around the crowd. It was electric because I saw people cheering. I saw people crying. Like, people of all ages. It was a real cultural experience. I was glad I got to experience it in person. And I can't believe this is just free on YouTube, but this is a really big doggone deal that you're going to have Corey Graves and Conan and now JBL on commentary. Sign me up, man. I think this is great for WWE. I think it's great for AAA. And that style of wrestling, man, it's not what you're used to in America. It is a whole nother animal, but it is so exciting. I hope that folks will check it out and give it a chance. I think if they will, they'll enjoy it, John.
I think they will too. I've been going out of Mexico since the early 90s. That's where I first met Conan, right after the first Triple Mania, which he headlined, by the way. I think it was the biggest crowd in AAA history down there. I think that was the one they had 40-something thousand. I think it was. I'm sure if I'm not correct, somebody will correct me. But Conan headlined the first Triple Mania, which is just awesome. I've been going down there ever since, and I've been working some with AAA. I love Dorian Rodon down there. I mean, it's the Antonio Pena, the whole legacy of everything that is AAA. And then I didn't know if I was coming back, because of the WWE buying AAA. And then they gave me a call last week, said, "Hey, would you come do commentary for the show?" And I said, that doesn't take but a nanosecond. Yes, absolutely. I'd love to. I can't wait to be down there. You've got to see these guys. I mean, this Psycho Clown, who was the son of Super Porky, one of the most charismatic characters in wrestling history. He's just as good as his dad, a complete different dynamic. And then you got Mr. Iguana. I mean, there's some great El Mesias down there. There's so many great names down there. But there's such great characters. You got to see this Mr. Iguana in person. I would love to catch his iguana and cook it for a hamburger. So have an iguana burger or something. That'd be so cool to actually cook it there in Mexico and sell it with the street vendors.
Listen to you. You're doing your best earthquake quake burgers right now or something like that.
That's right.
Hey, you were mentioning the attendance of the first Triple Mania. I think a lot of our listeners probably are familiar with Conan from his WCW days. And don't get me wrong, in WCW, that dude was cooler than the other side of the pillow. He added a lot of credibility to the NWO, I thought, a lot of street cred, if you will. He was just cool. He didn't have to try to be cool. He just was sort of the Spanish equivalent or lucha equivalent of Scott Hall at times. Scott Hall can tuck his T-shirt and his jeans and look badass. You and I may look like dumbasses, but hey, Scott can pull it off. I'm just saying Conan was kind of the same way. But you think about the level of star that guy was. John, you've been in the wrestling game for a long time. Where was the business in 1993? Would you say it was in an up cycle or a down cycle here?
Oh, my God. Horrible down cycle. Horrible. Yeah,
I mean, that's the year where we started to see WWE look at running high school gyms again.
That's right. Yeah, I came
rough.
2 years later to WWE, and they were considering running the Sportatorium in Dallas because we couldn't sell any tickets to Reunion Arena. And Vince finally said, "No, we can't. It looks too bad." It was the optics was what was bad about it, not because it wasn't what we should have been doing. But yeah, they couldn't give away tickets in '93. WCW was losing a freaking ton of money. That's about the time that Eric Bischoff came in and helped turn things around completely. One of the greatest corporate turnarounds ever. But man, business was horrible.
Yes.
I mean, there wasn't really a plan after Hogan, and you didn't know what you were going to do. And all of a sudden, you have the right around that time the trials with Vince, and he's distracted. It was a terrible time. Meanwhile, down in Mexico, Conan is selling out every building you put his name on,
including Triple Mania. Now, with the benefit of hindsight, John, we call that Triple Mania 1, but at the time, it was just the first one. Sort of like you didn't say WrestleMania 1, it was just WrestleMania. Well, that event, April 30th, 1993, you alluded to it earlier, but you even shot it a little short. 48,000 fans in the building.
That's insane.
You could have combined months of WWF and WCW houses to get to 48,000 tickets sold. That's the level of popularity that Conan had, and the idea that you're going to be at his shoulder and Corey Graves' shoulder. Sign me up. I'm pumped for Triple Mania this weekend.
Yeah, me too. I love Conan. I think he's got a brilliant brain. He's a really good booker. He trained under Kevin Sullivan. I mean, there's a lot of reasons he is. One, he's very smart, but you talk about a big draw. I mean, to this day, some guys asked me about a show that was just on the other side of the border in Texas, and they said the one person we'd love to have is Conan. Conan hadn't been in the ring to wrestle in years, and they said, "Man, we'd love to have Conan." He's still that big a name. People just it's shocking. When you talk about how WCW and WWE couldn't draw any ratings, any people, nothing, and Conan's putting 48,000 people in an arena down in Mexico, that's an amazing thing to do.
It is an amazing thing to do, and especially when you consider just what the the mode that the business was in here in America. I mean, we've always heard, hey, it can be up or down. But like a week before that, on April 23rd, WCW ran a show in Mount Juliet, Tennessee at the junior high school gym. And there's a loaded card here. Hall of Famers: Johnny B. Bad, Tex Slazenger, Steve Regal, Shanghai Pierce, Robbie V. That's Rob Van Dam, by the way. The Barbarian, Vinny Vegas. That's Kevin Nash. Chris Benoit, Bobby Eaton, Tom Zink, Stone Cold Steve Austin. Back then, of course, he was just Stunning Steve. Brian Pillman, Marcus Alexander Bagwell, and Too Cold Scorpio. 100 tickets sold.
Wow.
The next day, Hopkinsville, Kentucky, 300 tickets sold. Now, down in Mexico, the same week, 48,000 people paid to see Conan. So when people talk about, I hear that Conan's getting a WWE Legends deal, that means he's going to have one of the hottest selling action figures on the globe. I mean, that's what's coming if and when that deal comes to fruition.
Right. When I worked down in Monterey in '93, same year, Conan had just lost that retirement match, so he's out for a while, and he would come up and sit ringside. We're sold out in Monterey. Now Vampiro was there too. Two big stars. Vampiro was a huge star as well, but they'd sell out freaking Monterey. Whatever the Bull Arena held. I don't know what it held. 16,000. It was huge. It was a big arena. But we'd sell that out at the same time. They're selling out. They're putting 100 people in an arena for WWE. I mean, that's why I love going down to Monterey. We're in Texas. We weren't drawing any money. We weren't making any money. I go down there and we'd work 3 or 4 shows. Carter, we worked 4 shows on one day. We worked Saltillo, we'd work Monterey, then we work a couple house shows. Some guys were working 5 or 6 shows in a day.
Wow.
In Monterey. I'm not talking about Mexico City. I'm talking about around Monterey, up north, where it's not near as populous. That's how hot Mexico was, thanks in huge part to Conan.
That almost sounds like the comedy scene in New York. You hear comedians who will go work 5 or 6 times in a night working all the different comedy clubs, but respectfully, that's not a physical performance. The idea that you're having a physical performance, getting in the car and doing it again, man, what a grind that must have been back then.
And it was awesome. You're younger then too. Those rings were hard as a rock, Bill. You're younger then too, so you're loving it because you're getting 4 paydays. So you'd have to structure it well. You didn't have to be same on the card everywhere you went. So if you're late in the card, the first show, you had to be late on the card, the second show, third show, and fourth show, because the first guys had to wrestle the first show, go to the second one because they're in the ring about the same time as the guys are finishing up the last show, and that just goes on all day long for the different shows. It was an incredible time. I'd never experienced anything like that, working a bunch of shows in one day, and they're all sold out. It was an incredible time.
We just got one of the most fun live chats that we've ever gotten, one that I'm actually going to have you read. But before we do, I want to talk about True Classic. True Classic is never just about the fit or the fabric. It's about helping guys show up with confidence and purpose every single day. Their clothes fit where they should. They feel incredible, and they don't cost a fortune. You get that tailored look without sacrificing comfort or blowing your budget. But what really sets True Classic apart is the mission behind it all. From uplifting men in their day-to-day lives to giving back to underserved communities. And yes, even trying to make you laugh with ads that don't take themselves too seriously. True Classic is a brand that leads with purpose. And I've been rocking True Classic for a while now. You can feel the difference the moment you throw one on. It's tailored where you want it. It's relaxed where you need it. There's no bunching. There's no stiff fabric. There's no BS. Just a clean, effortless fit that actually works for real life. Forget overpriced designer brands and skip the cheap throwaway stuff. True Classic is built for comfort, built to last, and built to give back. You can find them at Target, Costco. Right now, head on over to trueclassic.com/STW and try them for yourself. Again, I know I said you could get them at Target and Costco, but to help the show and to get the best possible deal, go right now to trueclassic.com/STW. Try them for yourself. So, John, we never do this, but I know that you're a big Grok fan. I've learned that from hanging out with you in real life, and I know that you're a big Grok guy, but we got a question here that I don't even want to read because I know when you read it, you will get tickled. Hit it, Silva.
I asked Grok in what membership or presidency we put Tony Chimley in. And they said definitely president of the Worm Eaters and also can eat 42 burgers. That is fucking great. Grok is the best. Even Grok hates Chimmel. What a brilliant computer. I mean, that tells me right there that Gronk is the future. Even Gronk knows that Chimmel can eat 42 burgers, and that the catering bill, that was one reason WWE was losing money in the early 90s, was because Chimmel's catering bill. And Gronk knows he eats 42 cheeseburgers, and everybody hates him.
And he's the president of the Worm Eaters. I'm learning so much about Tony Chimmel. I
have wished evil things upon Chimmel for every day for the last 30-something years.
You know, that doesn't.
I told him my only desire in life is to live a few seconds longer than him so I can say, good, Chimmel's dead.
With friends like these, boys and girls, with friends like these. He
told me one day, I got him booked on some stuff, and he told me, he goes, man, you did me a huge favor. He said, I think you saved my life. He knows that that hurts me. I said, Jim, if I saved your life, it's the worst thing I've ever done.
I love this so much. Let's talk about the headline news that everybody's talking about this morning, John. And we are live at somethingtowrestle.com. If you haven't already, we hope you'll make plans to join us. Hit that subscribe button, turn on the notifications bell, and stay tuned. We're going to have some really fun, exciting stuff to announce in the coming weeks. But the big news everybody's talking about this morning is Karrion Kross and Scarlett Bordeaux's contract apparently coming to an end with WWE. Now, I'll admit, when we talked about this last week, I thought, well, this doesn't make any sense. I mean, clearly this is going to be for the WWE Unreal show. This is just a storyline, and it's a work, brother. So, hey, listen, I tried to toe the party line a little bit and have a little fun, but now I'm not so sure. I think this might actually be real. Now, that's not to say that Karrion Kross and Scarlett Bordeaux will eventually be back in WWE. But I think instead of this being a work shoot, this may be a shoot that turns into a work. I feel silly saying those words, but what do you make of this, John?
I am surprised with you. I didn't know how it'd play out. I thought they'd probably re-sign him. I mean, you got crowds chanting, "We won't cross." You got merch sales that are very good for Karrion. So I don't know. I think there's a huge future for Karrion. And we just had him on our show, me and Mr. Briscoe, Stories of Briscoe and Bradshaw. It's going to drop this Thursday, and he's talking about the new book that he's got out and all the different things that he's doing. I mean, there's a lot going on in Karrion's life, and I don't know. I guess they had different plans. I guess they had different direction they wanted to go, and I think Karrion has an opportunity now. And a huge opportunity. There's never been a better opportunity, Connor. We mention this almost every single week for people to create names outside of the business. We talk about Triple Mania coming up. I just saw, I believe, Natty Neidhart's going to be there. And, she's done, after a terrific Hall of Fame career, she has completely reinvented herself. And I think what she's done is just, I love Natty as a person, as a performer. I'm good friends with her dad, Jim. I love what she's done, and I think that's the model for people to do. And I think that's what Karrion can and should do. He's got he's going viral with all this stuff, which is really hard to do. And he's got the ability to go out there and create a buzz. I think that's what he needs to do. I think he needs to challenge Josh Barnett, who's I love Josh. Man, if I was in shape and younger and more talented, I'd love to be one of those blood sports with him. I think it just looks like a blast. I think you should do that. I think you should go to GCW. I think you should go wherever he can go and make a name for himself. Go to Japan. Have some fun. I think now's the time you use this buzz to go out there and see what you can build off of it.
I totally agree. And if I'm honest with you, I kind of assumed, as you and I are hooking up today, he was going to be on TNA last night. And I assumed that he would be at Triple Mania this weekend. But now that both of those properties are sort of WWE adjacent, maybe that's not the case. Even GCW feels WWE adjacent a little bit because of their ID program. So I don't know what I expect next. I mean, I kind of assumed he would be at those shows, but he actually went on his YouTube channel and said something like, I expressed interest to renegotiate in early January with WWE. I think it's crazy, preposterous that anyone would think I wouldn't want to be here or go somewhere else. It's frustrating because, you express your interest to stay and be here and do things. I'm not going to beg. I've made it very clear. So many, many months have gone by and never had a single conversation about it until recently. And I don't even feel the conversation I had recently was an actual serious one. The conversation made me really angry because I just didn't feel like it was a real conversation. Somebody had contacted me and we briefly discussed. It was a very short conversation and the conversation was done and there wasn't anything really discussed of any substance. And that really, really, Actually, it didn't make me angry and it didn't make me upset. It just really profoundly disappointed me. I mean, that comes across like the real Kevin talking. That doesn't feel like character work. So I thought, wait a minute, this might actually be what I would call maybe the first casualty of the TKO era. You know, if you take a look at what happened when Endeavor bought UFC, the pay scales changed for the performers. That's just the reality. And at this point, they're all focused on delivering shareholder value. And we talked about it last week, John. This is perhaps the most loaded roster in history. There's only so much TV time to go around. Yeah. And maybe they made a cost-cutting decision. Like, I don't know if they couldn't come together on money or whatever, but I, for one, don't think we've seen the last of Karrion Kross in WWE. I still think he winds up back there. But the stuff he can do in between, man, that can make a huge difference, don't you think?
Yeah, I do. And this is an option right here. You got to even split in the road right here. I believe, and everybody that does this, I think people make a decision, and neither one's a wrong decision, by the way, Conrad. If you want to be taken care of and be working for a federation, whatever you want to call it, a group, a single entity, that's fine. There's nothing wrong with taking the money. There's absolutely nothing wrong, and nothing wrong with that security. But if you ask me, do you create all this buzz because you want to become a star or because you want to get a contract? To me, that is, I don't 100% of the time. I want to become a star 100% of the time. And I will do that in sake of a contract because I believe that if you can become a star, that is so freaking hard to do that the contract will follow. You don't do it the other way. People get that wrong sometimes. You say, well, I'd like to get the contract, be taken care of. There's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with getting paid from an entity and being taken care of and working there. And whatever your role is, you're accepted in that entity. Or you can try to move up. You can try to do certain things. To me, though, use what you've done with becoming viral to become a star. And that might mean that you're working week to week without a contract. That's unnerving for a lot of people. A lot of people don't want to do that. The original Sheik made, according to his tax return, $600-something thousand in the early 70s. There were guys who were really big stars, just as big as stars, that were making a fraction of that working in territories. And that goes on in every single generation. There are guys like the Sheik that want to do it. There are guys like Cody Rhodes that want to go off and make a big name for themselves and come back and make mega money. But to do that, you risk a lot. I've always been one of the ones that wanted to take the risk. Some people are not. We'll see now where Karrion has the option of what he wants to do. And there's no wrong answer in this because it's just a different mindset of different people. To me, I take that viral ability that he has. I try to become a star, a bigger star. He's already a star, a bigger star, and then see what happens. I think the money follows.
Yeah, he could certainly get that groundswell underdog. I mean, listen, we've seen. I for one, thought he was going to do like a Brian Pillman loose cannon thing when he showed up at the ECW arena when we thought he was supposed to be signed with WCW, and then he jumped to the WWF. That's kind of what I thought they were going to do here. So I just assumed he would show up at TNA. I just assumed he would be at Triple Mania this weekend. We'll stay tuned and see what's up. But I do want to circle back to something you mentioned about the Sheik because you just casually threw it in there. Hey, in the early 70s, his tax return said he made $600. Now, the quiet part out loud is he made a lot more money than that. That's just what he told the IRS.
That's exactly right. That's exactly right. If you do any of these old guys, and I'm not throwing shade at the Sheik, but if you do anything about him as well, what the Sheik reported was what the Sheik wanted the government to know.
Well, do you want to guess if you use the handy dandy inflation calculator? If you take all that $600,000 in 1973, do you want to guess what that's like in $2025, John? Just venture a guess.
Yep, I think there's a way to look at this, Conrad, and you can figure this out as well because you're super at math and figuring stuff out. I think it's either a 2 or 3x is what it is. It's a multiple is what it is because
it's 4.3 million.
It's what?
4.3 million.
Oh, what it is today's? I'm sorry. I thought you said what he actually made as to what he reported.
Oh no, I'm saying 600 on the tax returns.
Yeah,
in today's dollars is 4.3 million bucks that you reported to the IRS. Which, as you said, if it's a multiple, my man made $8 million that year, maybe.
That's right. Because
that's crazy.
You talk to a lot of these old guys, and they had a way of they had a lot of them got in trouble. but they were pretty good about not reporting the full amount. But there are guys like that every generation, that come along and will become a star themselves and not beholden to one person. It's so much easier to be in one territory and just have a boss and have a check coming in every week, because otherwise you really are paycheck to paycheck. But sometimes that paycheck to paycheck's worth it.
I can't wait to see what's next for Karrion Kross. I'm a big fan of Karrion and Scarlett, and I know that they're going to make a bunch more money in the pro wrestling business and have a lot of fun. It's just a matter of where. And where is the other thing everybody's talking about. As you and I discussed last week, I don't think we talked about it on the show, but with the announcement that WWE was going to be moving over to ESPN, because I think that came out at the beginning of last week, my immediate reaction as I talked to other podcasters last week was that, hey, that means UFC is gone. And a lot of people were like, well, I wouldn't say that. Well, turns out right before we go live this morning, John, it's official. The UFC is heading to Paramount. Their rights here in the United States are going to be exclusively on Paramount in 2026. So all of the numbered UFC events will be available to Paramount Plus subscribers at no additional fee. UFC is officially moving away from the pay-per-view model. That's a big deal. They're getting a $1.1 billion average annual value for 7 years. I have to admit, I don't have all the info just yet, but when I see something that says 1.1 average annual value, the word value makes me think, okay, there's going to be some other in-kind stuff. Like a lot of people, when they're bragging about the value of their new television rights contract, they stop just short of saying dollars and they use the word value. So maybe there's some in-kind advertising or things like that. But either way, UFC getting out of the pay-per-view business. That's the real headline to me. TKO, specifically UFC, has hung on to that pay-per-view model for a long time. And if you go back a couple of generations, Vince McMahon and Don King were kind of the kings of pay-per-view. But now with Vince moving away and doing all of his PLEs a different way, first on the WWE Network and later on Peacock, and now I guess next ESPN, pay-per-view, is it dying, John? Is it down to just AEW and boxing? What's left?
Yeah, and some independents, some different shows. Yeah, it is. I don't see how it doesn't go away. Vince, I was there, and I was there for the whole thing with WWE Network. We almost went bust on that thing. There were people that telling Vince to pull the plug on that. Vince built a model that a lot of these companies now use because, Vince used to always say, I don't want to be ahead of the curve. I want to be just slightly behind the curve. Let somebody else, as they always say, Mr. Briscoe hates the analogy is let the pioneers take arrows, let the settlers take land. And that's how you want to be when you think about being on the curve of technology. At least that's how Vince thought. I was surprised it took UFC this long. Obviously they've got a great business model. Dana White has done an unbelievable job. One of the executives of our lifetime. They should put him up there with Steve Jobs and Vince McMahon and Musk and those guys. He's done incredible stuff. I've been surprised it's taken this long. I think it's just a natural progression. I don't know where this sits pay-per-view, say in 10 years. I think that's the big question. Does TNA go to a streaming pay-per-view? You're giving up 50% revenue to these guys, when you're giving a pay-per-view and all, they're clicking a button. They got the technology. I get that, but they're clicking a button. There ain't much they're doing for this. And so I can see where I can't see pay-per-view being around in the next 20 years for sure. Probably not 10.
Well, I don't know. I think it'll come back in fashion. I think it'll boomerang. Maybe I'm feeling alone in this, but don't you feel like people have gone app crazy? Like
yes, I think you do, but I think what happens with I don't mean it's going to be gone. I think it's going to be gone as in a pay-per-view provider. Okay. I think it'll be something like TNA is going to have their own shows, but they're going to say, you may not have enough for a streaming network, say $9.99 a month or whatever it is. You may say you can buy our monthly show, our big show, for $34 or whatever you charge for that. I think it'll be on their own individual streaming. So I think technology will get there where it's just going to be a freaking app pay for the pay-per-view. But it won't go through a pay-per-view provider as in the traditional sense. I think it'll be beholden. There's too much revenue there. I mean, we're talking about giving up 50% of your revenue to a pay-per-view provider. That's a lot. And it makes sense to try to figure out how to do this yourself.
It's going to be interesting to see what happens next. But we touched on the UFC. Now we know.
Conrad, who probably is going to get this is YouTube. is probably the one that's going to do it. It's probably going to get it because what they'll probably have on YouTube, they can already stream it. They're going to have probably a simple revenue device where you can say, hey, you can buy this. It'll be the same thing as a pay-per-view. And it'll probably be somebody like YouTube that already has the streaming ability. All you got to do is add a pay mode. They'll take a smaller percentage. I mean, good Lord, they could take 10%, 20%, not 50%. And YouTube would make a fortune off of it. And all of a sudden now these companies already have it there. It's already accessible. And they'll make a lot more money off of it.
It's interesting to see how YouTube has become a giant. I mean, year over year, their market share continues to grow, and they're already doing what you're talking about. I've actually purchased movies on YouTube where I would just sometimes, like over the weekend, I watched Escape to LA, and it's just free on YouTube, but I'd never seen it before. So I just did an interview with Scotty Riggs for adfreeshows.com, and he mentioned when he started wearing the eye patch, it was from Snake Plissken. And I was like, how did I never see that Kurt Russell movie? I'm going to go watch that. So I watched it. It was free on YouTube. But when I went to watch the original, it was also on YouTube, but you had to pay to see it. So that's existed for a while. So it is interesting. But I think you're onto something. YouTube's probably the platform that provides pay-per-view in the future. But no more pay-per-view, at least for now, for UFC for the next 7 years. They're going to be on Paramount Plus, which, by the way, that feels like a great deal for Paramount Plus because I don't watch Paramount Plus for very much, Sean.
There's not. There's one show on it. Is Landman on it or something?
Landman's on it and Tulsa King's on it. And
that's right. That's what I've got it for. Tulsa King. I just did Tulsa. I was trying to find I love Tulsa King. You know, and Cash Flow, our boy up in OVW, has done such a great job. Does such a great job on the show. I love that guy, man. He is such a nice guy. He's got a great role with Stallone. He makes Stallone look like Stallone makes him look like a giant.
Jeffrey Krupp is with us here live, and he says, don't you guys think WWE is going to ESPN might lose fans given they've gone years of charging pay-per-views a certain amount? No, I think, to be clear, maybe, Jeffrey, you're misunderstanding. If you already have ESPN through your cable provider, like if you already have it on Comcast or Xfinity or whatever it's called today, and you pay for the ESPN package, well, you're going to get all of the premium live events. I think, if anything, when we talk about this WWE move to ESPN, I think a year from now, we'll all say, hey, that's the biggest deal in the history of wrestling. I don't just mean financially, because shout out to Nick Khan. I think we'll all refer to that Peacock deal as maybe his rookie contract.
Oh, Nick Khan's a rainmaker. That's so much Prince money. I love it, man. That guy is just, some guys can negotiate deals and make big money out of them. And some guys will sit there in a room. You've seen them, Conrad. You've seen these guys will go in a room. They negotiate. They're smart guys. They can't do it. There are very few guys in the world like Nick Khan. That guy can walk into anywhere in the world and print money. He's so freaking good. What a terrific executive. I hope he's there till he retires because I'd love to see what he does over the next 20 years.
There's no telling what's next for WWE, but he negotiated $180 million from Peacock, and at the time, people thought, man, what a deal. He nearly doubled it, $325 million with ESPN, but it won't be behind a paywall. If you have ESPN, WrestleMania is going to be on ESPN. Like, you want to talk about expanding your audience, expanding your footprint. And I think that's really smart because I don't think it can be debated that while the move to Netflix was a great move globally, you did leave behind some cable fans who don't have Netflix, but the idea that they can now check it out on ESPN, WrestleMania is going to be bigger than ever. SummerSlam will be bigger than ever. The demand for tickets will be bigger than ever. If you're complaining about the pricing of WWE tickets now, wait 2 years. They're going to be more expensive. Advertising is going to be more expensive. Now, I know some people are going to say, well, they can't possibly cram any more ads in there. And you might be correct on that, but they could certainly charge more for those ads because that's what you're paying for. An advertiser is not paying on, hey, did I get an ad? An advertiser is paying based on how many people are going to see it. Well, if it's on ESPN, like real regular ESPN, my dad, who would never watch a WWE PLE on Peacock, he's going to watch them on ESPN. I just know it.
Yeah. Yeah. And you can thank Jim Barnett for all this. I mean, Jim Barnett created so much that is now coming to fruition in so many different sports. You know, Jim Barnett goes down to Australia and he teams with a very young Rupert Murdoch and teaches Rupert Murdoch what live wrestling can do for a network. So when Rupert Murdoch comes to America, one of the first thing he does is he gets live sports. People said he overpaid dramatically for football. It said this is going to sink Fox Sports. It paid dramatically for baseball, overpaid. It was the best thing ever happened to Fox. It made them. And so now you look at this, and ESPN is doing the same thing that Jim Barnett figured out a long time ago. High-profile live events can make your network. And they've got WrestleMania now. They've got all the WWE now. I mean, this is an incredible thing for ESPN. They are going to – I don't care what they paid. They're going to make a fortune off this deal. And they're going to – ESPN, they're already one of the best streaming services in the world. I love ESPN. They got every college football game that you could ever think of on their freaking ESPN Plus. Every rugby game, every soccer game. But now to get this is going to be a really powerful network.
Not only that, remind everybody, John, does Disney own ESPN?
Yes.
How far off is the physical Hall of Fame in a Disney park for WWE? I mean, they're going to break ground on that in 3 years. I'd bet money.
I thought it, and man, I love Vince. And very few you can pick out mistakes the guy makes when he makes 1,000 decisions a year that are main decisions. And his return rate is incredible. I thought the one mistake he made with the restaurant down on Times Square was not to make it a Hall of Fame and put all the great memorabilia and stuff in it. You want to make it more about the new age. And I know what he was thinking, but I think there's a real demand for that. And I think I've always thought it'd be perfect down somewhere around in Disney or in Orlando. And I think that's probably where it goes. That or Vegas. I think one of the two places it goes, but Disney certainly seems like an easy fit.
I mean, if you're doing a deal with ESPN, I mean, I just see Disney as being a big piece of this because look at the way they have extended the life of a brand like Harry Potter with all the rides and all the merch. There will be an Undertaker last ride,
Oh, yeah. Hey, think about the Disney theater. Think about an IMAX type theater and think about putting something in Orlando like an IMAX type theater so you can watch wrestling. You'll feel like you're there with this VR filming that they've got now. Then you've got all kinds of memorabilia around it in the Hall of Fame. You've got a WWE themed restaurant. You got the Undertaker ride. There's so much you could do to draw people to come watch stuff. I'm not talking about live wrestling. I'm talking about live wrestling telecast. So I think there's a lot of things Disney can do.
What a pivot by the UFC too. Respectfully, I'm not as big of a UFC fan as I used to be. I just decided to myself, I don't know if I want to spend that kind of money to watch these guys fight. I didn't have an emotional attachment with some of the young fighters. Once upon a time, everyone in my office came to my house for every UFC. I had a whole fight party and it was a whole thing. But as they've done more shows and they've tried to establish more stars and they have more fighters, I've just become less and less interested. So instead of buying 12 UFCs a year, I'll probably buy 2 UFCs a year. That will change now. I think, if you were taking a look at the UFC business, you would see, hey, their pay-per-view buys are dwindling. But now that they're going to be free on Paramount and they have the support of the CBS network, and that's really what I think they mean when they're talking about value. There's going to be a lot of mainstream advertising on CBS pushing the UFC on Paramount Plus. I think these are great deals for the UFC and ESPN, and it makes me wonder, is everybody else going to follow suit? I mean, do you think that eventually perhaps AEW moves away from a pay-per-view model and they put everything on one of their streaming apps, whether I'm talking about Warner Brothers Discovery, whether it's HBO Max or the Discovery app or whatever, is this the new way? Is it going to be follow the leader for everyone in this space?
I think it has to be. Now, some people are going to be too small to do this, and so they're going to have to find some type of provider. But again, I think it's going to be something like a YouTube that doesn't take 50%. You're going to find different revenue splits because it's too easy just to hit a button and click it on and take a 10% cut of the revenue or 20%, whatever it is, and give the people that are providing the pay-per-view the full more full boat of the revenue. And so, I think this changes everything. And I think what you say about the UFC, I'm the same way. I mean, for me to watch a fight and put in 35 or 50 bucks, whatever it is, I just put it in. And it's harder when you're already in the show to say, well, do I really just want to see the main event and pay 50 bucks for that? It's that there is a barrier there mentally, and it's not like it's 50 bucks, that's not that incremental amount of money. But when it's Paramount, you go, well, I'm going to watch it. And so, I think it's going to do great things for UFC.
Well, I'll tell you what can do great things for you as we're winding down the dog days of summer, and that's Mando. Right now, man, it is it's hotter than a $2 pistol down here in Alabama. I'm just gonna be honest about it. That means more sweat, more heat, and more stink potential. But not with Mando. Man, it's gonna block odor all day. It's even gonna help you control your sweat. I'm talking about this brand new product that I absolutely love. It's got sweat control. Yeah. You see, Mando was created by a doctor who saw firsthand how normal BO was just being misdiagnosed and mistreated. But Mando has been clinically proven to block odor all day long and control it for up to 72 hours. Mando is also going to keep your pits fresh and dry. I'm a big believer in this product. I've used it and you're going to love it. Now, they get the solid stick deodorant. I recommend the one that has sweat control. It's formulated and powered by mandelic acid. So that's really going to stop odor before it even starts. But they've also got a really cool spray deodorant. It's aluminum free and it's perfect for those hard to reach places. All of their products, by the way, are baking soda free and paraben free, and they've got great scents like bourbon leather, clover woods, Mount Fuji, or Pro Sport. It's been clinically proven, we're talking about Mando here, to control odor better than a shower with soap alone. And if you're ready to try America's #1 whole body deodorant formula right now, well, you're in luck. You can find it at Walmart and Target and other retailers across the country. But for the best deals and to support our show, go right now to shopmando.com. That's where you'll find Mando Starter Pack. It's perfect for new customers. It comes with that solid stick deodorant that you'll use in your armpits, but they've also got cream tube deodorant. That's where John really slathers up his ball bag and around his asshole area. You got 2 free products of your choice. Mini body wash and deodorant wipes are the go-to for me. You can even get free shipping with this package. And by the way, as a special offer for our listeners, new customers can get 20% off site-wide with our exclusive code. Use the code STW at shopmando.com for 20% off site-wide plus free shipping. That's SHOPMANDO.com. Please support our show and tell them we sent you. Mando's got you covered. Protect your pits and smell great doing it. Mando really works too, John. I don't know that I told you this, but I got a text over the weekend from Mrs. Layfield thanking me for Mando. So I guess you guys maybe went 2 out of 3 falls, and she said you smelled better than ever. So that's good news.
That is good news. Yes. It's good news to be able to have that and have the success at home.
Everybody, I don't know what makes them want to do the things they want to do, but I know what makes them not want to. So eliminate the stink with Mando.
That's right.
Hey, let's talk a little bit about Drew McIntyre. He's a guy that you and I think a lot of, one of my absolute favorite performers in WWE. But he's recently called out talent who listen to Twitter, telling them how good they are and not being on shows often enough. And instead of asking veterans for advice, they're looking to Twitter. He says, I give away advice for free in these interviews because all the new guys listen to Twitter and it tells them how good they are. And they're like, I must be good. Twitter's telling me I'm good, even though I'm not really on the show often. You got all these vets here to ask, and they don't ask any advice. They just don't bloody listen, do they? I love that all of a sudden Drew McIntyre, who none of us perceive as like an old timer, he sounded like one that, hey, no one's asking for advice. And you even saw The Undertaker. He started to talk about TikTok. He says, for me, I'm a notoriously old school guy. It's disheartening sometimes when I go to the shows and you can even find talent backstage watching matches. Like most of them are filming TikToks and doing other stuff. Even when I was on the road full time, if you weren't sitting there watching the monitor, it was going to be a bad day for you. So what do you make of these two giants in the professional wrestling business, a legend like The Undertaker and one of the top stars of the day, Drew McIntyre? What's going on with this this crop of newcomers to the WWE landscape who maybe are getting all of their feedback and notes from fans on Twitter? I don't know. That feels weird to me. What do you think about A, that dynamic, and B, them calling it out?
I love them calling it out. And the dynamic is terrible. I was, there for a while as an agent, I think 2 months or 2 days or whatever it was. And I remember talking to somebody, but I dealt a lot with agents because I would deal, I was there for the creative meeting that would, precede the show, not the creative meeting that happened on Thursday and Friday, but the creative meeting that preceded the show because I was doing commentary. And I would hear them talking to the guys, out there in the arena because I would go around getting notes for guys when I'm doing commentary. And I've heard agents tell wrestlers that didn't work. And literally, so my Twitter loved it. I've heard people say that. This was years ago. I'm like, what are you talking about? You've got a live feed right here, right around you in the crowd, 360 degrees. You got live feed right here around you that tells you if it's working or not. And you're telling me you're 50 people or 25 people who respond on Twitter, that's what you want to go by, and you don't know who these people are. You don't know if they're real names. You don't know if they're children. They could be 8-year-old children saying, hey, man, you're a great wrestler. And you're going to take that over the word of Arn Anderson, who's your agent. I mean, it's just crazy to me. I think the problem with it, Conrad, is because this phone is so personal that you pick it up and it seems like it's got to be right because it's on your phone. And I think that's why people give so much credit to it. But I think it's absolutely insane, and I think it really is hurting because, I've told you this many times, Conrad, how people would talk about how Twitter was blowing up, and I'd say, let's define blowing up. And by the time you count what is happening on Twitter, it's 40, 45 comments. You're going, yeah, it's all over my timeline. Yeah, but the North American audience is what, several million? And
right.
You're basing this off of 40-something comments off Twitter, and you don't know legitimately if this is an 8-year-old kid in Australia that's talking, or if it's a business owner somewhere. You have no idea who it is.
It's going to be interesting to see the evolution of the industry because with WWE Unreal happening and there being all those cameras backstage, I don't know, man. We start to get, it feels like that movie Inception. It's the story within the story within the story, and I don't know.
The one difference, Conrad, is these guys are building a brand, and I understand that, and I completely agree with that. I have no problem with that whatsoever. But I see people all the time, and it drives me nuts. I think it's a phobia. I think it's detrimental to mental health. I'm not the old guy that's cursing at the clouds, but you go to a restaurant, and you see a couple sitting there, like a young couple, an old couple, whatever else, where they are, and they're both sitting there on their phones just looking at them.
Yeah.
I'm like, all day long, you've sat here and you have looked at your phone all day long. And now all of a sudden, the one time you're with somebody that you love, you can't stop looking at your phone. And the parallel I make is to wrestling. You sit there, you're on your phone all day. You're traveling on a plane, you got Wi-Fi, so you're checking your phone, you're on it all the time. And then you come to the show, and instead of watching matches, you're checking your phone. You're checking your TikTok. You're checking your Twitter. I understand if what you're doing is building a brand. I understand that. We didn't have that. I mean, but could you imagine Roddy Piper on Twitter? Talk about fun. Jesus. But these guys have got to realize what's important. I think it just becomes a phobia with this instant feedback of, oh, man, is somebody telling me I'm good? And did somebody just like my video? I'm sorry, but that's not the be-all, end-all. Most of the time, it's a result of what you're doing in that ring. And I think people are neglecting that because of what's on their phone. And I understand completely what Taker and Drew are talking about.
Well, we're going to stay tuned and see how these – because I always wonder when I hear this, hey, are they angling for something on TV? Is this going to be a part of LFG? Is this going to be a part of Unreal? I mean –
they could be. Come across anytime you say something to young people, they just think you're the old guy that's bitter or whatever else. I've had people come to me all the time to talk to me about their matches. I'll even stop them sometimes and say, listen, do you want me to tell you how great you are? Is that why you came to me? Because if you did, I'll tell you you're the best thing I've ever seen in my life. I'll tell you whatever you want to hear. But if you really want to critique, I will tell you what I thought about your match. I'll tell you if you're good. I'll tell you my opinion. I'll tell you if you were bad, in my opinion. I'll tell you what you could have done better, in my opinion. But some of these guys just want validation. I watch them come back through Gorilla. We used to never have that. It's crazy. These young guys and girls will come back through Gorilla. They go to Triple H because then they do want feedback. I get that part of it. But what they want is validation. They just want to come through and people go, oh, good match, good match. So they will literally go to every single person and try to make sure that people say something good about them. I've sat there in Gorilla. Half the people aren't watching the matches, and they will sit there and tell them how great they were, and they go, "Oh, thanks," and they'll walk off. You didn't even watch the match. It's nuts. I was fortunate. Buddy Landell told me the first time when I was in Japan, he pulled me aside and he said, "Do you know when you have a good match, kid?" And I said, "I think so." And he goes, "Then why do you go to everybody in the dressing room and look like a complete mark?" So look, this is nothing new. That was 30-something years ago. And he tells you, why do you look like a complete mark going to everybody begging for somebody to say something nice about you? And I just looked at him, and he says, find you 1 or 2 people you trust, pull them aside, don't let anybody see you, and ask them what they thought of your match, and they will tell you. But a lot of these young guys today, same thing that I did when I got into business, they just want validation, and that's what this silly little phone is.
Well, let me ask you about that. Now, I realize this is a bygone era now, but I've heard from, well, I'll just say it. I talked to Paul Heyman once, and he said, hey, we play to an audience of 1, Conrad.
Correct.
And I was like, okay. And so when I really understood that, I mean, I even saw earlier this year Swerve Strickland doing an interview with DJ Vlad over on YouTube. And he said something like, hey, I want to make sure that Tony Khan got what he wanted. So, hey, Tony, what do you want me to do? He tells me what he wants me to do, and I go do it to the best of my abilities. When I come through the curtain, I want to make sure, are you happy with that? What can I do better? Like, I think that's just being a good, for lack of a better word, employee. And I know I'm not trying to get down the rabbit hole on independent contractors. I'm just saying, I do think that, hey, is that what you were looking for? How can I improve? I think that's real. Is that okay to go to Vince in those days and say, hey, is that good? What can I do better? Or do you think that even is crossing the line? And
you didn't do that with Vince. Yeah, you didn't do that with Vince. Vince didn't want you coming to him. If Vince wanted to talk to you, he would talk to you. Okay. And if he had something to say, he would say to you. If it was fine, he wouldn't say anything. If it was bad, he would say something. And if it was really good, he would say something. So if you walked through there and he didn't call for you, it was fine. But it wasn't anything outstanding. But it wasn't anything terrible. And that's how you could pretty much read Vince. Vince didn't want people coming up to him all the time, and he was incredibly busy. Vince did so much at Gorilla Position. It was impossible what all he did. He would help run cameras. He would be rewriting the shows. He would be editing stuff. He would be helping with matches. I mean, what Vince did at Gorilla, he was busy the entire time. So Vince did not want people coming up to him after every match and asking how they were.
So if you
I changed things several times, and sometimes they worked. And when they did, Vince had no issue with it. He's very happy with it. That's why he wanted me to try. And when they didn't work, I would go to him, always go to him and say, Vince, I did that on my own and shit didn't work, and I apologize. And he would always have something to say. He never got mad at me for that. He never got mad at me for trying. Sometimes he'd say, well, this is why I wrote it this other way. He would explain it to me to learn. And sometimes he'd just say, thanks. We'll get them next time.
Can you give me an example of, do you remember one time when you tried something that was different than what you were asked to do and it didn't work?
Oh, yeah. We were in some of the housing crisis that just happened. And I said something about people losing their mortgages and how it was because of the lack of intelligence. And I thought it resonated with people. It was so far over people's heads because it was in the weeds of what was going on in the financial world. It wasn't just right in front of them that, hey, you lost your home. Vince wanted it boiled down very simple to people so they could understand. And again, it's not that people are dumb and not that Vince treated them as dumb, but it's like Jay Leno or Johnny Carson when he would introduce somebody. This is Hillary Clinton, the Secretary of State. You'd always say what they were because people are busy. They don't have time to figure out, okay, I know who that person is, but I don't know. But if you say it right after it, you give them the answer that they need. That way they quit wondering. They know exactly who it is. Not that they're dumb, they're busy. And I had to assume that I was too far in the weeds. It was, too close to me. And I came back and told him, I said, Vince, I'm sorry. He goes, God, John, it's just, basically what he said was, you made trigonometry out of simple math. You didn't have to. Yeah. It should have been so much more simple, and you'd have got tons of heat. I remember I've told this many times. I was going up to Canada one time, and I had this long promo about how they're a weaker sister, how we protect them. I thought this would resonate. Basically, I'm saying 51st state before Trump ever said it. And I'm got this whole promo, and Vince says, no. And I thought, I was proud of this. He goes, get out there and tell them you love them. And okay. You're the boss, and you've been right so many times. I don't agree with this, but you're the boss. I got out there and I said, I just want you to know that I love you people of Canada. And they booed me almost out of the building, and I'm like, that son of a bitch. He's right again. And I'm just like, this is awesome. I had this whole promo I was going to say, and all I had to do was tell them I love them.
I love learning about the way wrestling used to be. I do want to ask, you said, hey, half the people in Gorilla weren't watching the match. That's going to get some clicks and some attention.
Of course it will. That's
so-
fine. I don't care that half of them aren't. Half of them are busy, going over their own stuff or whatever they're doing. And, they've got things to do. They're up there for the next match. They're up there for different things. They're up there to get in line to see Bruce or to see Hunter or to tell, I guess Billy's still there, Billy, to what the time thing is. Half of them are up there just to watch the monitor. A lot of them are working. It's not like they're goofing off. They're working. So, yeah, half of them aren't watching the match.
I'm not saying this to be funny. I'm really trying to learn because a lot of us have just seen the setup of the gorilla position on the Unreal show. And a buddy of mine at the office, he sent me a screen grab when he was watching it. And he goes, I know this is probably old hat to you, but this is so fascinating to me. Just the way the sausage is made, talking about inside producing a live show inside the gorilla position. So you said a lot of the people aren't watching the match. Mm-hmm. Who is tasked with watching the match in real time and giving feedback? Does that person exist, and who is most likely to give it?
Well, Billy Kidman would be the guy that'd be watching everything. Before there was Gerald Briscoe, before Billy got Gerald fired and sent him to retirement in Oklahoma, Florida, and poor Billy. I mean, poor Jerry. What Billy did to Jerry was just horrific.
So that's another reason to hate Billy Kidman.
That's right. That's right. The fact that he married over his head is the biggest one, the greatest overachiever ever. But he got Gerald Briscoe fired, and so that actually Billy didn't. Billy did. Billy always will tell me he can have his job back at any time. So I think he's mad at Jerry for leaving, actually, rather than Billy got him fired. Billy is a funny guy. If you've ever met him, he's a good dude too. But Billy watches everything. We used to always joke that the only one that actually watched all the matches were me, Michael Cole, Kevin Dunn, and Gerald Briscoe, and later Billy, because we were the only ones that watched everything. So that's the ones that's tasked with watching everything. The back chair in the far corner, that was Vince's. It's now Hunter's. The next one is the right hand guy. That was Hunter. Now it's Bruce. Bruce normally sits there, but Bruce sat there with Vince too. And goes, Hunter was always working, or he was in NXT. And then you have the agent that sits by Billy, whoever the agent is, the match, because he needs to be able to call it. And also you need to have the people that are sitting in those two chairs, like say Hunter and Bruce, before, Vince and Bruce normally, they would be the ones that would be talking to the agent if something needs to be relayed into the match, because you want it coming out of the agent's voice. You don't want a bunch of people in the referee's ear if you need something relayed. And that's the makeup. Then you just have a bunch of people around Gorilla that are involved in either the match that is happening, or the match that's coming up, or the match that maybe had just happened and they've got to get something done or some type of feedback.
I wonder if anybody back there in Gorilla is watching things that they're not supposed to be watching here in America. Because if they are, I want to give them a little pro tip. Surfshark can hook you up. I'm such a big believer in this product, especially right now when things are changing with what we can or can't watch here in WWE land. A lot of people are nervous. I don't know if you know this, John, but people are wondering, hey, if the PLEs are going to ESPN, what happens with the archives? Well, some of our friends across the pond, they don't have to worry about any of that because, well, their country has different set of rules. And you can make your computer or your television think that you're in that country. Thanks to our friends at Surfshark, this is going to open up a whole new slate of content in the wrestling space that you can actually check out. And I have to admit, I was not a VPN user all that long ago, but I tried it risk-free with a 30-day money-back guarantee, thanks to our friends at Surfshark. And dude, I can see wrestling that I never thought I'd have access to again. Stuff that I thought was gone forever, it's here. And using a VPN is like wearing trousers. It keeps all the important things private and secure when you venture out. A VPN, or a virtual private network, safeguards your entire online activity. Once your device connects to the internet, all the information is encrypted. That conceals your online activity from snoopers and trackers. And if you've been looking for some WWE, or how about even some AAA, even CMLL, you can watch CMLL on HBO Max. Did you know that? Yeah, it's popular down in Mexico. You just got to use your Surfshark VPN. I'm a big believer in this. I know you will be too. And Surfshark VPN is our sponsor today. We want you to go secure your privacy with Surfshark. And we've got a link right now at surfshark.com/wrestle where you can get 4 extra months of Surfshark. Internet security is more crucial than ever. So protect your online life with military-grade encryption. You'll enjoy a secure, unrestricted internet experience. With Surfshark VPN, you shield all your data on public Wi-Fi. You avoid identity theft and fraud. It's going to keep you safe, even in the most insecure online environments. But never worry about who's spying on your data again. Surfshark's got you covered. But with this Surfshark opportunity, no more geo restrictions. It's a thing of the past. You can break through the online barriers and access content from all over the world, whether it's streaming your favorite shows or accessing blocked websites. If you found some of those while you're alone in your bed late at night, I don't know. Surfshark ensures that you stay connected wherever you are. And now a quick update for travelers. Surfshark can save you money on flights and hotels by eliminating location-based price differences. I didn't even know that was a thing, but it's a secret travel hack that's always in your back pocket. What are you waiting for? Go secure your privacy with Surfshark. Go to surfshark.com/wrestle and use the promo code WRESTLE. You'll get 4 extra months. That's surfshark.com/wrestle and use the promo code WRESTLE. John, we're talking today about your retirement. And I think we're doing this today because everybody's been talking about John Cena's retirement. And just this past weekend, or last week on the show, I mentioned that as we're watching John Cena and Cody Rhodes at SummerSlam, my wife says, "God, he looks just like John. He looks just like JBL." And so then this past weekend, I show her the Tom Brady reveal of his new statue outside of Gillette Stadium there where the Patriots play. And I said, "Hey, look, they're comparing him to Uncle Baby Billy off Righteous Gemstones." She thought that was funny. And she goes, "Actually, he looks like he's related to John Cena and John Layfield." And I'm like, "No, what? Hang on. Tom Brady is regarded as being one of the most handsome dudes around. And now you're saying my podcast co-host favors him? So we got attractive guy heat here, John. What's going on? Are you related?"
Apparently so, man. Good Lord. If I take the place of Bruce and I look like Tom Brady, God, what an upgrade you got.
I mean, damn nation. So listen, let's talk about your retirement. I know that you had some back issues in 2006 and now in 2009, it looks like you're really going to be eyeing retirement. And there's actually a line that pops up in early March of 2009 in the Observer. JBL is now working at the new Wall Street firm his wife, Meredith Whitney, opened up. And this is the first thing that's written about you in the Observer after your feud with Shawn Michaels ends. So you can check out that episode in our archives. But did you already have one foot out the door, or were you just trying to set up what life is going to be like in the future?
No, I had one foot out the door. Now, the financial crisis was, I guess this was 09, right?
Yep, early 09.
Yeah, it hit. So I know it wouldn't had the financial, the firm I worked for had nothing to do with my wife, except for the fact that my wife had worked for the owner, not the owner, the president of the firm, for a hedge fund she had like back in the 90s, that he had back in the 90s. So that's where the association came. The way I got the job on Wall Street was long story short, I wanted to build a wind farm in West Texas where I grew up. I had the land all bought and everything, and I had the GE turbines all arranged to have bought and everything. And we went to this bank to use it because I knew the president. And right before the deal got closed, it was about between an $80 and $100 million deal. But before the deal got closed, renewable energy credit market imploded, and that killed our deal. That 1.5 to 2 cents of every single kilowatt hour sold had imploded. And that was a bill that every 2 years they'd renegotiate that bill. That's why every 2 years you'd see a spike in builds, because it took them 2 years to do it. They didn't know if in 2 more years a new Congress would approve it again. It was one of the problems with renewable energy during that time. When it imploded, it killed the deal. So I went there and thanked them. I said, "Guys, thank you. I'm sorry it didn't work out." And they said, "We love what you did. Would you come to work for us?" And so I said, "Yeah, I actually would love to do deals." And so I got Series 7, Series 63 certified, did all the tests, all the stuff you have to do to get into Wall Street. And I worked as a VP there for several years. So I was working already on Wall Street. I was working during that time, then came back to Wrestle for a while. And I was kind of doing both. So it was kind of tough. I'd literally go wrestle, then go back and work on Wall Street. Literally the next morning, I'd fly back with Vince and Kevin and literally work at Wall Street literally the next morning, work all week, doing deals, and go wrestle on the weekend like it was a part-time job or something. So I did kind of have one foot out the door.
When you're already sort of putting roots outside of the business, why did you venture back into wrestling? Did you still have the bug? Did Vince call and say he needed you? It was the bug.
That is the bug. And also Vince called to say he needed me, and I never turned down a phone call from Vince, not one time. He called me and said, "Hey, we want you to do some commentary. Would you come back?" And I didn't know how Wall Street would think about that. I'd had enough problems with going into meetings with guys from, Goldman Sachs and guys who are really good bankers. And I'm the pro wrestler. It was tough enough as it is. It's easy to exceed low expectations, which benefited me, but it was kind of tough, the background, because they didn't assume, I didn't even have a college degree. I left early to go play pro football. So it wasn't like I'm come from some Ivy League college. I didn't even come from a college. And, I am certified. I did all that stuff. And I did score, I think, the highest that they had graded on our test for our firm when I took it. So, which kind of blew a few people away. I studied a little extra hard for it. That was a pretty hard test. But Vince asked me to come back, and I never told him no. So I went to my Wall Street guys. They were very nice. I said, "Do you mind if I do commentary on Monday nights?" Or I guess it was Monday or Tuesday, whenever it was. I said, "I'll fly with Vince, fly back. I'll come to work the next morning." They said, "We think it's a great idea." They loved what I was doing. So it was all Vince asking me to come back.
I don't guess I ever really thought about that, but I bet in a Wall Street environment, a certain section of people probably did try to treat you like the dumb jock, didn't they?
Oh, 100%. Yeah, I go into meetings all the time, and you could see them have me ask me some questions they thought, couldn't be answered. And it's one of those things where I knew that I was going to be under a microscope. So I never went into a meeting not horribly over-prepared. I always was over-prepared. I answer for everything. So they loved taking me to the meetings because they knew I'd done all my homework, because I knew there was always a chance. I was not in every meeting, but there's always a chance some asshole would be there and want to take a shot at the wrestler because they didn't think I belonged at the table.
I love that. There's a report in the Observer that says you've been talking about an imminent retirement due to back problems. Meltzer would say Layfield said this past week that the back problems, which ended his career the first time in 2006, have continued, and that his career would probably be over by May. So when you're coming back, did you start with the end in mind? Like, hey, I want to get through this one program, or I want to get through WrestleMania, and then I'm going to call that a career. Is this sort of the cherry on top? Did you know that going in?
No, I didn't. I thought it was my back had gotten better. I'd done some, I don't know if it's experimental. I don't even know they do it now. It's the stretching technique they use in the back machine they use to make the back loosen up and let fluid go in there. It was first had just been done at the time. I don't even know if it's done now or if it's greatly progressed. I didn't follow it. My back got to feeling a lot better, and I don't know if it was from the treatment or it's from being off. I'd never been off the road. I've been working, from the days of, the late territories till then. I've been working, every single year, every single month. I've been working my ass off. So I never had a break. So I don't know if it was the break or the treatment that I did on my back, because I went through all these treatments and all this different stuff. I did a lot of different stuff trying to make it better, and it got a lot better. And so I don't know which one it was to give it credit for. Maybe it was both. But I thought it was going to be another run. I thought I was going to be able to wrestle for a while, but I wasn't able to.
It's also written that while you were on the outside, you started Layfield Energy, which became a sponsor and a financial backer for OVW, essentially saving the company, which had lost its TV in Louisville. What can you tell us about Layfield Energy and your partnership or association with OVW?
Yeah, it was. I loved it. I just wasn't any good at the beverage business. It was a tough business, and we had done a deal with a small nutraceutical company that was very successful. And part of that was a beverage business. So I wanted to arrange a deal with WWE and the beverage business to create like the new ICO Pro is what I had in mind. And the CEO of the company at the time went up there and met with Vince. Did not do, I thought, a great job. Either that or Vince didn't like it. A presentation, and so the deal didn't go through. Vince turned it down. He liked it. He did give me a bunch of ideas out of it. He was very gung ho about it, but at the last minute he was doing something else at the time. I can't remember what it was. He was starting something. I don't know if it was the XFL back or something like that. There was something being started at the time that took away a lot of his energy and a lot of the brain power of the company, and so he didn't think he had time to do it. But he gave me a lot of ideas, and I thought, man, one of the guys told me, so why don't you do this yourself? So that's where the idea came from. I partnered with a small nutraceutical company, developed a couple of different things. I developed a energy shot that was actually, I thought was excellent. Obviously, nobody else did because it's not still around, but it had an anti-inflammatory in it. So you take this energy shot, it's like a golf shot. So you take like anti-inflammatory in the morning, like for golf, gives you energy, and it has anti-inflammatory curcumin and all of its different stuff that's natural in it, and also helps your back, your knees, things like that. So I thought it's perfect for like older guys or older women in sports. You take the energy, but it also has a bunch of natural ingredients that reduces inflammation, and it worked. We just couldn't get traction with it. You know, it was tough. We would get into stores, and by the time we'd start selling it, Pepsi or Coke would come in and just say, "Hey, we want that shelf space." And so I go in the store and I said, "Where's my product?" And they'd say, "Oh, we had to put it in one of the back shelves." I said, "Well, why? It was selling." Coke and Pepsi told us to put their stuff there. And so I got outspent is what it was. And then I finally found a guy that had wanted to buy all the recipes and stuff and all the inventory. And I thought, man, I just don't think I'm going to make it. So I end up selling all of the inventory, everything, lock, stock, and barrel, even the forklift I had. Sold every bit of it to that guy. Was very happy about it. We also had Mama Juana Energy, which was a Dominican product. It's like a male energy drink. You know, same thing. You drink it, and it also has all these properties that, you know, same thing you see in the natural ingredients today. We were just well ahead of our time. We let it be pitched kind of as a Viagra, which it wasn't, more of a male energy drink. So you drink it, and then it really boosts your testosterone levels in your body, but it doesn't do it like immediately. So we pitched it a little bit wrong, but we had a great product. We had two great products. We had a great product from a great heritage of the Dominican. Everybody makes their own like Mama Juana down there, and it's like Southern barbecue. So I had these two, what I thought pretty cool shots. We just couldn't get traction. You know, every time we would, somebody would step in. I say somebody, Coke or Pepsi or somebody would step in and get our space, and there was zero we could do about it. You know, we'd come in and say, "Guys, we're selling product," and they say, "Yeah, but guys, this is Coke and Pepsi. They tell us what to do." I understand. That's why it's so hard on, you know, small companies.
Bruce was involved in that one a little bit.
He sure was, and did a wonderful job. Bruce is a terrific executive. We had some videos we did with JP Shellnut. We had a lot of stuff. Bruce was involved. Had a couple other good friends involved. A guy named they call him Mook up in WWE was doing our graphics. Incredibly talented guy, and we had a great team. Sometimes things work, sometimes they don't. And this is one of those where it was going against the 800-pound giant, and that was a battle that it's almost impossible to win. That's why companies, when they sell to bigger companies, they don't compete with them and build their own. They sell to bigger companies.
I can't believe this is real, but what an interesting thing to look back at. You beat CM Punk for the Intercontinental title on Raw in Jacksonville, Florida. There's a story there. If I don't even have to work too hard for it. What do you remember about winning the Intercontinental title from CM Punk in Jacksonville, of all places?
I love CM Punk. To this day, I love him. I always have. I was there at his Hall of Fame speech at the Cauliflower Alley Club, and loved being there to be there for him. And I was the first person with him in the Garden that worked a cage match. I think I told this story maybe last week with CM Punk. We'd worked a match with me, him, and Batista, and I didn't think we'd put him over enough, and I come back down. He had no idea what I was going to do. He told the story at his Hall of Fame. He thought I was just going to clothesline. He had no idea. And I said, "Hey," I picked him up. I said, "Duck the clothesline, hit me to go to sleep," because I thought it's important to leave me laying at the end and leave his hand, a little bit better. I liked him, and I took my role very seriously. That my job was to help him get to that next level. Again, not like he needed it, like Cena. He was going to be there anyway, but it was fortunate that it was my role to be there, and I enjoyed working with him. And then in this case, they wanted to I think put a title on me so that I had more gravitas and more prestige going into WrestleMania against Rey.
The next week, you're in San Antonio, and it's going to happen with an interesting tag team. Undertaker and Shawn Michaels on one side, and you teaming with Kozlov on the other side. Kozlov's not a guy we spend a lot of time talking about on the show. I don't know that we've spent very much time at all. What can you tell us about this guy who I think a lot of people thought was positioned to be one of the top guys, and for whatever reason, it just never really panned out the way we expected?
I don't know why it didn't pan out. I liked him a lot, and I think everybody did. And I say everybody did. Obviously, somebody did, and he wasn't there that long. I thought he's very talented, had an incredible look. And again, it's Nathan Jones quits, down in Perth, and I think Nathan was going to be a guy that was going to get pushed. Nathan came in like, good God, man, that guy's going to be whatever he wants. And to this day, I think he could have been. He just chose to leave. Kozlov was the same way. Like, this guy's going to be pretty much whatever he wants. He was talented. He had a great look. I thought he had a great attitude. Nice guy. People liked him. And I'm not sure why it didn't work.
It's interesting that it's not really talked about that often, this match that you're building to with Rey Mysterio, because while you're working this tag match here, Mysterio's gonna win over Dolph Ziggler in only like 2 minutes. And Dave would say Mysterio was super over and probably the worst start of an angle in a long time. As Mysterio was wrestling, Cole mentioned that Mysterio had missed the last 2 WrestleManias with injuries and wanted to be on this next one against JBL for the Intercontinental title. It's just sort of mentioned on commentary. It feels like you've got all this stuff going on with OVW and the energy drink and the Mama Joanna thing, and also doing Wall Street, and you're trying to do the wind farm thing. Like, you got so much stuff going on here, and your back's hurting, and you're in there with some of your friends like Shawn Michaels and The Undertaker. That's high profile stuff. But if this is really supposed to be your retirement match, it's just sort of flippantly mentioned. Oh yeah, Rey Mysterio wants to be there to challenge JBL. Were you disappointed in that? Did you wish there was more of a story going in?
No, I don't. The thing was, the story just wrapped up with Shawn, and I thought that was going to WrestleMania.
I got you.
What I thought was what was going to happen, which I thought, man, that's cool. I'm going to be in WrestleMania with Mr. WrestleMania. So, by the way, those that think that the WrestleMania 25 match, which I'm one of them, was the greatest WrestleMania match of all time, that's with Undertaker and Shawn Michaels. If I'd beat Shawn, then that match wouldn't have happened. So you can thank me for that, just like you can thank me for the Attitude Era for losing to Jake Roberts and then Steve Creed and Austin 316. I'm pretty much responsible for everything good that's happened in wrestling.
I can't argue that. I mean, when you really look back at it, I mean, you used to go on TV and refer to yourself as the wrestling god, and you're just sort of teaching us now with the benefit of hindsight. You were right the whole time.
If I beat Shawn, Shawn continues to work for me, and he never has the match with Undertaker, because I wouldn't have allowed that, because I don't want to get my prime asset and Shawn Michaels hurt potentially against the Undertaker, so I wouldn't have allowed the match. So you don't have that great match that happened. So me losing to Shawn is pretty much, I did something, a huge favor for his wrestling history.
We got to spend a little bit of time talking about what happens the following week on TV. We're doing the Raw/ECW tapings. This is Kansas City on March 23rd, sold out at the Sprint Center. Mysterio's going to get a win over Regal in just under 3 minutes, and you're at ringside, and Mysterio's going to give you a sliding kick, and you're going to make mention of doing something at WrestleMania that will shock the world, but not giving any hints. You had been teasing this a little bit on the website too. Did you know what that was going to be, or were you just teasing something and going to figure it out?
No, I knew what it was going to be. And, you talk about, with all that stuff going on, I had a million things going on. I mean, it was unbelievable. My life at the time, I was traveling, I was working, every day of the week. And if I hadn't been, I'm not sure, I don't know if I'd have retired or not. I might have. My back was hurting. And so after the match with Shawn, I didn't have much, going on. I'm just, working on Wall Street. Things are going well. And I told Vince, I said, my back's killing me and it's not getting better. And so we agreed that I was going to retire. And I also told him, because of my love of Eddie, that I wanted to work with Ray. And I love Ray too, by the way. It's not just Eddie, but I love Ray. And I said, I want to give whatever I have in equity in me, I want to give it to Ray. And so that's when I started coming up with the idea of, I'm going to do something monumental. That was all for Ray, 100%. From that point forward, where Vince said, hey, we're going to retire you at WrestleMania. We both agreed on that. We both agreed on that. 100% of that then went to Ray.
We got to take a break right now and talk about our friends at Magic Spoon. I absolutely love this product. You've heard me bragging about it for a while. By now, you already know that Magic Spoon makes high protein, zero sugar cereal and treats, really reinvented from your childhood. You can literally taste the nostalgia. But Magic Spoon's also launched a brand new high protein granola. And true to the Magic Spoon promise, it's packed with protein and oh so crunchy. I love talking about their high protein treats, though. I've got them in my cabinet right now. I love the double chocolate. They've got flavors like marshmallow, chocolate, peanut butter, and dark chocolate. But double chocolate, man, that's for me. It's crispy, it's crunchy, it's airy, and it's a great way, an easy way to get 12 grams of protein on the go. But the brand new granola packs in 13 grams of protein, but 0 added sugars. They've got delicious flavors too, like dark chocolate almond, honey almond, and peanut butter. Go get $5 off your next order at magicspoon.com/wrestle, or look for Magic Spoon on Amazon or in your nearest grocery store. That's magicspoon.com/wrestle for $5 off. So we're going to see let me just read exactly what it's written about in the Observer the following week. JBL versus Rey Mysterio may be JBL's farewell, as he's promised something that's never been done before. On the final Raw, they actually had this match, at least Mysterio, challenging for the IC title, beat the champion. It would have made more sense for the TV non-title match to take place a few weeks ago, leading to the match, as opposed to it being thrown on at the last minute 6 days before the show. But in reality, that's not important, since this show is live and it lives and dies by the name WrestleMania. So the amount of hype the company can garner in the final few days to get impulse buys, and that comes really down to Orton versus Triple H and Undertaker versus Shawn Michaels. So you're going to beat Ray twice on the way to this event, which is, I guess, par for course a little bit. But I know that's been a criticism, that Vince would pay a lot of attention to the A story and maybe the B story. So we'll call it your main event and your co-main event, but everything else, it got less attention. And when people are critical of Vince Russo, they would say, well, at least that was something that Russo was really good at. He gave something of substance, something that felt meaningful to every segment on the card, not just the main event. Is that true, at least in your perspective, that Vince really focused on the top 2 stories at best, and then everything else was sort of up to the rest of the crew, and it just wasn't priority to Vince?
Well, I would disagree with the second assumption of the second Vince, because I was there when he was there. But the first Vince, yeah, that was always a criticism of Vince, and there were times that we had the whole card, from top to bottom, was just loaded. But yeah, Vince knew what drew money, and he would cater to the top, 2 to 3 storylines. Now you would see Vince at WrestleMania when he would produce the entire show. He'd be there from like 8 o'clock in the morning till 1 o'clock in the next morning, producing every single segment. Everything, he cared very much, about how everything was done in every single match. But as far as the storylines, yeah, I think that's a fair criticism, was that he was very top heavy, and that's what drew money, and we knew that. Look, mine was different. All of a sudden this was thrown upon Vince. My back's bad. And also at the same time, like, my life was crazy, and it was wonderful. Don't get me wrong, I love it. My wife was on the cover of Fortune magazine. My wife is listed in the top 100 most influential people in the world at CNN at the time. She's on the cover of Forbes. I mean, she's doing, and she's everywhere. I'm working on Wall Street, and I'm going on the weekend and wrestling. My back's bad, and I've always kind of wondered, in hindsight, I think it was the right move, but you always wonder, should I have retired? Should I have not retired? But at the time, I made the best decision that I had according to the facts at the time, and I think it was the right decision. Vince agreed with that, and so it was thrown upon us that all of a sudden now I'm going to retire, and we had to do it quickly because that was Texas, and it was very important to me to retire in Texas. The Von Erichs were going in the Hall of Fame. Stone Cold was going to be there. I mean, that was very important to me to make it to Texas and to retire in the home state and to retire against Rey Mysterio. That's exactly what I requested. I got everything I wanted out of that. And I knew the ending was going to be shocking. So I didn't care what the buildup was, because I knew what the payoff was going to be.
Well, we know what the payoff is going to be. It's going to be a big WrestleMania. It's written right before. As of press time, no decision was made about what will happen with SmackDown on April 7th, and it continues to talk about what's going on with you. There's a lot of speculation regarding JBL, whose wrestling days are running down because of his back injury, and he did the SmackDown announcing job before Taz. The impression I've been given is, while that would be likely to happen, JBL has both the Layfield Energy Company he's trying to build up, as well as working on the Wall Street firm. So that's 2 demanding professions, which may not leave time for wrestling. Nevertheless, JBL did come close to leaving once before, and they got him to stay by letting him ride the private jet to and from taping. So he'd be back home on Wednesday morning. So it was only a 1-day job. I think that's sort of often overlooked. But like when Bruce was first going back to WWE, he still lived in Friendswood, Texas, the outskirts of Houston. And man, it was just a brutal travel schedule.
Yeah.
But when you're on the jet, you can leave that morning and be home that night. You're sort of in your home. You're in your bed every night. So you can have a regular life for the rest of the time. Now for Bruce, that just means he can be back in the office and not have to travel back and forth to Texas. But in your case, that's kind of a necessity. Like you literally couldn't have worked on Wall Street and flying commercial because you would have missed 3 days out of the week, right?
That's right. I'd missed 3 days out of the week, and this way I'm literally missing one. I mean, that's all I'd miss was one day. And Vince would send a car for me. I'd go up to Westchester. I'd fly out with him. I'd fly back that night with him, and it was wonderful. It was fantastic. So that was one of the issues that I had. That's one of the concessions that Vince gave me. I said, man, I'm tired of getting on planes. It wasn't just, I couldn't do both. I couldn't do jobs both, but it's also I was tired of getting on planes. Vince goes, well, just ride with me. Vince was very generous with the jet. He would let all kinds of talent. He would have all kinds of on the way back, it'd always be full. Now going wasn't full because people would be on the road already. They'd go out there to, make sure they're early for the meetings or whatever else. But going out a lot of times it was just me, Vince, and Kevin. And then coming back, it was, the plane was full. And, sometimes you'd have more people going out, but on the way back, it was always full because Vince would always make sure if he had an extra seat, he would offer somebody a ride. But for me, I would miss one day of work.
Hey, I want to spend just a minute here and talk a little bit about what we've got going on with your commentary job, because I know that it's teased like you might be just jumping right back into commentary because we know Taz is actually going to be making his way down to TNA, but you didn't come back and do commentary for like 2 years. What kept you from doing commentary?
The opportunities.
Okay.
It wasn't talked about. There's only a couple commentary spots that are open. And I was never one to say, hey, I want the commentary job, because if I ask for that commentary job, that puts somebody out of a job. And I figured when the job comes open, if I'm the best available guy, they'll use me. And that's what happened. I was never one to, when King had the heart attack on air, and they asked me to take his place for a while. I was in Africa at the time, and I had to fly back and fly to the West Coast. I told King, I said, next time you die, would you not die on the West Coast, where I had to fly back from Africa and then fly across the country too? And he told me he'd do the best he could. So, but he hadn't died since. So he has kept his word. But the one thing I said was that I don't want to take King's job. If King's available, he gets it back the minute he's healthy. Like here with Bruce, I'm not taking Bruce. The minute Bruce wants this chair back, he can freaking have it. I've never been one to take a job from somebody. And so there was not a commentary job open. I'm not going to ask for it. Plus I was fine being home. Things are going great. I'm working on Wall Street. I'm doing what I want. What happened is literally I missed the business. I could have worked on Wall Street forever. I still love doing deals. I still love investing in stocks. I still do a lot of that stuff. Not like I did then, but I miss wrestling. And that's why after COVID, I got so bored. That's why I'm gone nearly every weekend doing stuff with Ron Simmons. I mean, I love being around Ron. And when people ask me to come in and do an appearance, I'll say, all I got to ask is Ron there? As long as Ron's there, I'm there. I miss being around the boys. And I use that in a gender neutral sense, not boys and girls. I miss being around the guys. And, during COVID, it drove me nuts. And when I quit after that period, it drove me nuts. I'd done this business my whole life. I'd wanted to be in this business since I was a kid, and all of a sudden I'm out of this business and I'm making money, but I realized I'm bored. I'm working with a bunch of guys on Wall Street that God bless them, but that's not my people. It's just, the guys are, and I miss being around them.
I want to give a shout out to Grayson the Ginger, who's with us here live on YouTube. He says, I'm 29 years old, and as a young kid, I absolutely hated JBL. And he was the WWE champ. But ever since I became an adult, I realized he's the greatest heel of the 2000s, even better than Triple H. What about that compliment right there?
That's a terrific compliment. It's fun now to, I see so many people that around that go, tell me, I hated you. Thank you very much. I appreciate that. Of course, they always tell me you're a great heel. And I act surprised. Oh, I was a heel? I wasn't aware I was a heel. I thought I was a good guy. But it's funny when I used to walk through airports, and if you see a group of Hispanic people, you can hear them when I walk by. Shingai cabron. You can hear them cussing me walking by. My wife go, what's that? I go, just ignore it. Just ignore it. And started to explain. And now when you see them, they all come up to me because they know I'm good friends with Eddie. And so they all come up to me and I always make a joke about I was right about Rey Mysterio. He's a deadbeat dad. Now, oh, that's the greatest thing ever. And now it's like almost impossible to be a heel because they enjoyed what I did.
On some level, you've kind of killed kayfabe forever by doing this podcast, because people did think you were just, when we first announced that you were going to be in the spot here in Bruce's chair, man, people were, I'll never listen. I hate him. What an asshole. And then they listen and they're like, wow, I was totally wrong. I just think it's so fun that sometimes the smart fans are the easiest ones to convince. Like, oh no, I know that this guy, he's a real ass for real now.
That's right. He's for real. He's a real asshole. Yeah. He's a real asshole. I remember I was walking to a building one time and some woman was sitting there. She goes, hey, I'm not a wrestling fan. My kids are. She goes, I know you just play a bad guy on television. I know you're not a bad guy. And would you get a picture with him? And I just sat there and looked at her and just walked off. And she goes, you're an asshole. I thought, yeah. I got you, didn't I? I got you. I kept walking. I didn't go back. Yeah. I love being a heel, and I love being a heel 24/7. I get that all the time, Conrad. I go to these signings all the time with Ron. Man, until you did that podcast with Conrad, I just thought you were an asshole. I've killed all my heat.
That's probably one of the reasons. I know we don't talk about current wrestling a ton on the show, but that's probably one of the reasons why you like MJF, right? Because he really keeps that going all the time.
He does. He does, and he enjoys it. I was at an appearance with him when he threw the belt or whatever it was down. People, a viral moment. I saw the whole thing. I was sitting there watching it. He enjoys being a heel. And to me, I think it's part of it. I know people today will disagree with me, but people that are standing outside an arena, they're your hardcore fans. They're there to see John Cena. They're there to see Eddie Guerrero. They're there to see The Undertaker. They're there to see popular guys, Booker T. They're there to see guys who beat me. And if I walk in and I see them all and I go over to them and say, hey, guys, how you doing? And they go, man, that JBL's not a bad guy at all. He's really a good guy. They will tell everybody that's sitting around them at the wrestling event. And it kills the experience, in my opinion. And you can call me old school. You can call me whatever the hell you want. I don't care. It kills the experience for them that their guy beat a bad guy. Now they're saying, oh, their guy beat a guy who plays a bad guy. And that's just a different level of fans getting involved. And so I was a bad guy. I didn't want to be the good guy. And when I got beat, I wanted that mama and that two kids to love the fact that I got beat, not the fact that they watched the performance and they go, oh, we saw JBL get beat, but he's really not a bad guy. It kills it. I want them to say, we saw JBL get beat, one of the greatest days of my life. I hate that guy. I want it to be great for them. And that's one of the reasons that I've stayed in character all the time.
Well, let's talk about WrestleMania 25. But before we do, we've got a comment here from a friend of the show, Guy W. Johns. Greatly appreciate him hanging out with us. He's a regular for us. And he says, good morning to the best podcast. Wouldn't WrestleMania 26 be the 25th anniversary? Couples who got married in 1985 wouldn't say 25 until 2010. Well, that's because the first WrestleMania was retroactively called WrestleMania 1 versus you're using the word anniversary. I hear what you're saying. That means a year later. But numbering wise, it would be weird to celebrate 25 years of WrestleMania at WrestleMania 26. That'd be real challenging, wouldn't it, John?
It would be. So technically, Guy W., you are correct. But I think in practicality, I think it's easier just to number them one through going on instead of talking about anniversaries.
Just Rome is with us, big fan, and he calls you the wrestling god. Do you have that trademarked? Do we need to get that trademarked with our gimmick attorney, Mike Dawkins?
I think we do. I think Michael Dawkins needs to start working on that, the wrestling god. That way I at least own it.
Yeah, I mean, Silva, you need to maybe throw it in your Google machine because I know you don't speak it. What is wrestling god in Spanish, John? Do you know? Because you might need to dust that off at Triple Mania this weekend.
Dios, yeah, I knew it at one time, and oh my God, I've got to dust that off. And I know Dave doesn't speak Spanish, so he's
not at all, not a lick.
No, he has to watch this. He uses his VPN to get the mattress actresses in English, not Spanish. So
I got big heat from him last week talking about that.
Oh yeah, I know. Okay, I'm not going to mention about Dave watching mattress actresses. We're not going to talk about that.
And we're not ever going to explain why Bruce loves donkeys. Let's talk about WrestleMania 25. You want to talk about Byron?
Dios de Lucha. Okay. I believe that's right. Dios de Lucha.
All right.
I grew up in West Texas. I was never fluent in Spanish, but I was kind of conversational. So it's been a long time since I've spoke it, but I still kind of understand it if they'll talk slow enough.
The pay-per-view WrestleMania 25, we know this is going to be your retirement match, at least for then. 960,000 buys. It's unbelievable. By the way, look at that photo. You can tell me that dude on the left is not loosely related to John Cena somehow.
Oh my God. I can see the Tom Brady reference, not the good looking part, but it's kind of maybe the old part.
You know, I didn't even see the Tom Brady thing, even when Megan said it, until I'm looking at the photo now, and I'm like, I could see it, I guess. You know, I'm
well, Megan, thank you.
I'm coming around to the idea that I don't really like you very much.
Cool.
I thought I did. I thought we were friends, but maybe you are an asshole. It took me a while to get there, but I think that's where I'm headed.
You told me a story before we got on the show about a car you were driving in, and we're not friends either.
Let's talk about WrestleMania. We got Rey Mysterio and JBL really making wrestling history. I can't believe this is real, but Rey wins the Intercontinental title in the fourth match at WrestleMania 25 in 21 seconds. You would attack Mysterio before the bell, and then you would demand that the bell be sounded. The referee is going to check on Rey to make sure he's ready to start the match, or should we call it off? Mysterio agrees to start it, and then takes over with a drop kick, a 619, and a splash off the top rope for the pin. It took a whopping 21 seconds for him to pick up the Intercontinental title. And after the match, JBL looks at the crowd and said, I quit. And that was his retirement. He did it in a total heel way as to not get any emotion from the crowd behind it. So even though it was true, I don't think most in the crowd bought it. Was that the idea?
Yes, 100%. Yeah, 100%. That was Vince's idea, and Vince was a little bit worried that I was going to go into business for myself, which I would not have done. And he came to me right before the match. He goes, hey, are we good on this? I said, well, boss, you have nothing to worry about. I said, I'm not – you know, he was worried maybe in my last promo in Texas. He wouldn't want me to go off and, try to do something dramatic. And you could tell he was completely assuaged by any concerns he had. He goes, great. And he shook my hand. He goes, proud of you. And I never planned on doing anything different. And I thought the JBL character, the way it went out, was the way it should have gone out. I didn't want a last match. I didn't want a bandwagon. I didn't want people cheering. I didn't want any of that. I wanted to go out like a sniveling little heel is exactly how I wanted to go out. I wanted to get mad, stomp my feet, and walk out and not come back. And so that was the idea I had, because that's what I thought the character would have done. And I to this day, I think that was the right thing to do, because I think that's what JBL, the character, would have done.
JBL, after the match, said that while you never say never, quote, I've wrestled my last match. He said he picks Mysterio as his last opponent because it was the closest thing to Eddie Guerrero, who he would have liked to have had his last match with. He also said, I'm proud of the WWE for cleaning up a great sport to make it more healthy to everyone that's a part of it. He'll be going full-time into other business interests and also working with the Layfield Energy Company. I have no plans for anything in the future on a professional level with WWE. Was that sort of bittersweet? Did it feel like I know you said, hey, that's the way you want to go out, but just take me through that. Like, your 21 seconds are up, literally. You've cut your promo. I quit. You're in the backstage area now. You're putting your shit in a bag, maybe for the last time. What's going through your mind?
Absolutely heartbroken. 100%. Absolutely heartbroken. I realized that was my last match, and I mean, heartbroken. That's the only way I can describe it. I just felt terrible. I didn't even stay for the rest of the show. We had a big deal. They were going to do a pose off with, I think, Cody and Santino or something at the WrestleMania party. Kid Rock was going to be there or something, and I didn't even stay for that. I'd been having the back scenes, backstage, promoting this thing. We were having a lot of fun with it, and I didn't even stay for that. I just drove home, and I watched. I remember I came out of the ring, and I didn't really want to retire. I didn't want to be in this business my entire life. Since I was a kid, one of my youngest memories was telling my grandfather I was going to be a wrestler, and here I was. I got to live this life, and the life itself exceeded every expectation I ever had about being a wrestler. I loved every second of it. Every bit of it. I loved being in the ring. It was so much fun being out there. And I realize now that it's over. And I was sitting there and I was talking to Ray. Vince came back and hugged me and told me thank you. And I remember I just got my bag and thought, I'm just leaving. And oh man, this sucks. But I stayed and watched. I don't know if they were on right after me or like 2 matches later. I stayed and watched Undertaker and Shawn.
Next match was the
next match. So I stayed there at the monitor before I left. I had my bag. I was about to leave, and I stayed and watched that match because I figured it was going to be something special. And I remember watching that match, and I remember thinking, that's the greatest wrestling match I've ever seen. And now understand my mindset. I just retired. I'm out of the business now. And I sat there, and before I left, I watched 2 of my friends go out there and have, in my opinion, the greatest match in the history of this business. The millions of matches, I thought that was the greatest. To this day, I think it was the greatest match ever. And I remember thinking, it's a good day to leave. And I just remember smiling at it, thinking, God, man, this is the right day to quit. Because I remember sitting thinking, I've watched the greatest match ever. I've gone out there and I've put over my friend, and every equity that I had in me, I did everything I could to give that to him. That's a great legacy for Ray, for Eddie Guerrero. And then I got to watch, in my opinion, the greatest match ever. And I just remember thinking, it's a good time to leave. Got my bag, walked out, and I never thought I'd be back. I didn't know. Life's long. You plan on. You don't know what's going to happen. I missed it and had the chance. Kevin called me, I think a couple years later, asked me to do something. Hell yeah, I'll do it. I'm bored. I miss you guys. And so it was, after seeing that match, I just remember thinking, man, this is a perfect ending.
Just so I understand, John, you were 42 years old? Is that
yeah. I think that's right, yeah.
You were the same age then that Damian Priest is now. Doesn't
right.
that seem really, really young?
Oh my God. At the time, I was one of the oldest champions they'd ever had. And they had a few that were older, and I think maybe Flair held it at one time. Was in the 50s, and Vince maybe held it for a short time. But I was one of the oldest champions they'd had. 42 was an old man, and this wasn't that long ago. It was 2009. The world's changed now. 42 is you're just getting started.
It's just crazy to think, that you were retiring at 42. I know this is not your deal, but when you come back through the curtain, do you go shake Vince's hand, or do you see him before you leave the building? Do you have some sort of, I don't know, embrace or emotional moment backstage before you jump in your car with anybody?
Yep. I had a great moment with Vince. I was never a guy that looked for eyeballs when I came to the curtain. I thought if people want to talk to me, they'll talk to me. I would, to this day, when I come back, I don't want to, I don't want to beg for approval. So I was never one of those guys. Most of us weren't. So I came back and just went through, came back and got my bag, showered and got my bag. And I was about to watch, I think I was about to watch Shawn and Taker, or maybe it just entered something. And some people were talking to me, and Vince sitting there and waited in line. Then I realized it was Vince waiting for me at WrestleMania. And so, of course, I went straight to him, and he hugged me and told me thank you. And I told him thank you as well.
Yeah, I know that this is not something we normally talk about, but was Meredith there? Was any of your family there? I mean, Is it important to you to have anybody there?
No, it was not important. Not important at all. She came to a couple matches. She came to some, they had to do one for her for Fortune magazine. When she was on the cover, she was at a magazine, she was at an event watching, but she didn't come in the matches. She loves wrestling, and she loves the guys and girls that are involved. She's good friends with a lot of them. They were all my groomsmen in my wedding, so obviously she loves them. But no, she worked, and not that she couldn't have come. She knew it was my last match, but it was, I don't know. Everybody's different. I don't go to work with her. So, she's never been one that, wanted to come on the road and, hanging around an arena and watch a show. And I was perfectly fine with that.
I don't know that everybody knows this, but I know this from talking to him. This is the first WrestleMania that Bruce wasn't involved with since 1992. Bruce was, of course, there from WrestleMania 88 on through. He had that one hiccup where he wasn't around in 82 or 92 rather, but he was relieved of his duties in November of the prior year. So he's actually at this WrestleMania, but not in Gorilla, not backstage, in the crowd as a spectator. And you guys are in business at that point. I think it's got to be kind of a weird deal for both of y'all, for you to be having your last match and for him to be wearing a hat in the crowd. This is a weird deal for you guys, is it not?
Absolutely weird. And that was part of it too. I was still mad about Bruce not being there. that was part of it too. Things had changed, and I wasn't happy about, and I was very vocal about it. Probably, and like I've said many times, probably too vocal at times, and stepped over the line. But that was part of it too. My friend wasn't there, but Bruce was there in the arena that night. I think he was. He'd say he was. He had to be. And we were in business together. So I still got to work with him. I talked to him a couple of days ago. I love talking. Yeah, Bruce is. He's just fun. You just light up what he calls. We never talk about anything serious. It's all stupid, and sometimes some old stuff. But he'll tell me how he invented headlocks and backdrops and things like that. But and I'll just listen.
I heard recently he invented calendars.
He did. He invented the calendar and the number system.
Okay.
He invented the entire current number system that we have.
You and I both got a weird text. You should take a look at that. But first, do that right now, John. Guys, enter the room dick first. Blue Chew isn't just a tablet. It's a cheat code for your crotch. Stronger, harder, longer lasting. Like someone gave your downstairs a pep talk and a gym membership. Blue Chew is the original brand offering chewable tablets for better sex. I popped a Blue Chew, and now TSA calls me sir before every pat down. Guys, this isn't just about performance. This is about legacy or third legacy. Give her group chat something to talk about. When you lay it down, they're talking about how it gets up. Nothing makes you more of a legend than a little Blue Chew. Discover your options at bluechew.com. And we've got a special deal for our listeners. As always, you can get your first month of Blue Chew free. Just use our promo code Wrestle at checkout and pay $5 for shipping. That's it. Join Blue Chew's mission to upgrade humanity one thrust at a time. Head on over to bluechew.com for details and important safety information. And a big thanks to Blue Chew for supporting the podcast and sponsoring the show today. We're talking a little bit about live audio wrestling. It's written here in the Observer. JBL was on live audio wrestling. So this is late July of the same year. So months after WrestleMania. And he said the reason he's no longer with WWE is that when he retired as an active wrestler at Mania, they didn't offer him anything. He indicated if he was offered an announcing role or a GM role, he would have been interested. The biggest mistake he made was coming back from his announcing gig and going back to wrestling because he would have never been replaced as an announcer. He came back because he was 40 and was unhappy about how his career ended, and he thought his back had recovered enough to go. And he knew if he didn't come back at that point, the window of opportunity would close. But his back hadn't fully recovered, and he was in pain pretty much the entire last run, and admitted being unhappy with how limited he was in the ring. He didn't bring this up, but he did have talks with TNA. Nothing as of yet has materialized. Now, that was interesting. I do want to ask about that because we even got a question here from Instagram, a wrestling historian, who always brings the great questions. And he says, were you going to have one more match in TNA? I've never heard that before. Did you have talks with TNA? What happened there? You're muted.
Yeah, I'm muted. Dave was mad about that mattress actress comment. Which I'm not bringing up, the fact that he used a VPN to get around it. I'm not going to bring that up at all. Yeah, I did talk with TNA, but it wasn't. That's way back in the day. It wasn't that serious. I had a meeting with Dixie one time in Nashville, but it's more out of a professional courtesy because that's where our warehouse was. And I was in Nashville a lot, and I said, hey, just out of professional courtesy, I called her. I said, hey, would you like to have a meeting sometime over lunch or something? And we just talked mainly business. She didn't offer me a job. We didn't talk about working at TNA, so that wasn't a job search. She wasn't there to recruit me or anything. We just had a very nice meeting. She's a very nice person, a terrific meeting. I really enjoyed meeting her. It was a learning experience for me. But I forgot about that. That was a big part of me coming back. By the time I got out of the ring after 04, 05, I'd gotten fat and I wasn't happy with the way I looked and I couldn't get around. And I didn't want that to be the last image of me. That was a big part of it. I forgot that until you read that interview clip. That was a big part of it. I couldn't work out. I was on the road so much. So hadn't had a break. Hadn't had a break since 91 really, or 92, since I started wrestling, from 300 days a year to up to the very end. I hadn't had a break. And so my back had just gotten bad. My shoulders were bad. I've had a couple of shoulder surgeries since. I've, had several surgeries since and fixed a lot of things. I feel great right now. But at the time, I didn't like the way I ended. And so that was a big part of it. I thought, I don't want the last thought of me to be this old fat guy in the ring. And I say old, I was like 39 or 40 at the time. So it wasn't like I was that old. But you were, according to the day, that wasn't an old guy. I didn't want to be the old fat guy that stayed too long. So I wanted to come back and change that legacy just a little bit. And so, I don't know if I should have come back or not. I'm kind of glad I did, because it was a different thing that I got to do. And I got to do a retirement match with Rey. I mean, that was really cool to be able to do that and go out like that in Texas. For that, it was coming back was worth every bit of that, to be able to go out in Texas that night against Rey. And as far as them offering me something, they didn't offer me anything, but I didn't ask either. And so I don't know, I don't know where that the interview, if reading that back, it sounds like I wanted to stay with the commentary. I wanted to come back and I wanted to wrestle some more. And so that was a choice I made. It wasn't like, I was going to, it wasn't like I thought, hey, maybe I'll just stay in commentary. I wanted to come back, and Vince allowed me to come back. We both thought it was a good idea, and I think it was at the time. It's just I couldn't perform up to the level that I wanted to at that time, because my back had not gotten any better. But I got to go out against Rey like I wanted. And then afterwards, I didn't want a job. I didn't ask for a job as a general manager. I didn't ask for a job as a commentator. I didn't talk to him for probably 2 years at all, I don't think. And, unless, we're still friends, but they're busy. And maybe I went back for a show or two here or there, a legend show or so. I don't remember if I did or not. And then out of the blue, Kevin calls me and says, you want to do some type of commentary? And I missed the business and I wanted to come back. So that's how the whole, thing happened. It wasn't like I looked back and thought, man, I should have just stayed in commentary. I could have done that forever. I was glad I'd come back, because of the way I got to retire.
I know this is, at this point, forever ago. I mean, this feels like a lifetime ago. And for a lot of people, it is. But, at the time when you said, hey, I didn't call them, were you a little pissed off or frustrated or angry or disappointed or whatever? I mean, you mentioned the way the whole Bruce thing went down. Did you have hard feelings towards Vince or Hunter or Stephanie or anything like that? Is that reason you didn't reach out?
No, I don't think so. I think I was sad. And when I say I was heartbroken, I was. My dream of being a wrestler was over, and it ended not because I wanted it to. It ended because my body forced it on me, and so I wasn't ready to retire in 06. I wasn't ready to retire again in 09, whenever 06 or whatever it was. I wasn't ready to retire again in 09. I had to, because of my body. And I wasn't mad. I was very thankful that I'd gotten to work for so long. My job on Wall Street was there because of WWE. I mean, now I got that because I was trying to put a wind farm together in West Texas, but I couldn't have done that if I hadn't been with WWE. I mean, I had a name because of that, and I'd written a financial book. The financial book got published because of WWE. I mean, and then I got put on television because of financial television, because of WWE. Everything I have right now, everything I have is because of WWE. So I certainly wasn't mad. Was I disappointed? Yeah, I was disappointed it was over. I wasn't mad at them or disappointed in Vince or Hunter or Stephanie or anybody else. I was disappointed in the fact that my body had given out on me. And by not calling them, I was mad about the Bruce thing, but that wasn't something where I'm not going to call somebody because of it. There was no reason for me to call. And a lot of guys, when they, get out away from WWE, they go, oh, they just forgot about me. Well, of course they did. They're running television shows. Look at what they do now. They got all these television shows every single week. You think they got time to call everybody that has left a contract in the last couple of years? That, hey, how you doing? Just want to check in on you. That's not what you do. They're busy, and I understand that. I had no issue with that whatsoever.
I guess what I'm trying to drill down on, and I get if you don't want to talk about it, but did you feel like you ever had a rough patch with Vince, or did you always feel like I can always pick up the call? If I called him and said, hey, I'd like to do something, he'd bring you in, because you knew when anytime he called you, you answered the call. Would he have done it for you, or did you guys have a rough patch that you've long since fixed? We never had a rough patch where we got crossways where we didn't talk. Yes, we've had some rough patches, and a lot of those were my fault. I was young and immature and didn't handle myself very well, and yes, we've had some rough patches, but they never lasted long.
we had a rough patch one time where I met him at the building, and he and Kevin called me in, and we all hugged and shook hands, and it was 100% my fault. And Vince got over it, as Vince always does, and I appreciate him for that. He was like like so many people have said, not just me. He was like a father figure to me, or like an older brother.
Yeah,
he was wonderful with me. I messed up a couple times, and Vince said, "Okay, all you got to do is just here's how you say you're sorry." And basically, what he's saying is, here's how you say you're sorry with keeping your respect.
Yep.
Vince never made anybody grovel or anything, which I wouldn't have done, but he knew that, but he never asked me to. So yeah, we've had some rough patches, but never where I'm not calling him and I'm not answering the phone if he calls. Now we did it for a couple of days. We did it one time for like 2 days, and we got it straight. We got it straightened out right away. But that was that was my fault. But at that point, no, it wasn't like I was mad. If I'd have called, Vince would have answered it on the first ring, unless he was in a meeting or something. To this day, if I call and Vince knows it's me, he'll answer it on the first ring, and I would certainly do the same for him.
And if we're honest, if you've had a partner in business for more than a few years, that's inevitable.
We're two high octane personalities, me and Vince and Kevin, and that's three actually. But yeah, that's two high octane personalities. We have gotten crossways. Arn Anderson has told the story. Vince got up, and I thought we were going to fight one time, and I got up too, and I thought, I really don't want to fight the boss. I really don't want to do this, but I thought I was backed into a corner, and Arn has told the story. He was sitting there in the room when it happened, and Vince threw everybody out, and I thought, good Lord, we're going to fight. I said, son of a bitch, I do not want to fight this man. Not whether I can win or lose or anything. I love him, and I'm mad at him, and he's mad at me, but when the door went out, he grabbed me and got this big bear hug on me and told me he loved me. And we sat down and we hashed things out really quick.
Do you even remember what the fight was about? I know sometimes it just becomes an emotional thing, and then later you're like, what were we even upset about? Or do you remember?
I sure do. Yep. It was over a match, and he had said something about the fact that the fact that the match wasn't good, and the fact that it was because we didn't care or something, and that just sat with me wrong. And I told him, don't you ever question my passion. And when I did, I bucked up to him right in front of everybody. That's something you don't do with Vince. And Vince got up and took his jacket off. I said, holy shit. That's the only guy we're going to fight. And so I thought, well, I'm not going to back down. And, and I don't want to blow this out. People want to make this a big deal that it is. And he threw everybody out of the room. And as soon as he went out, he hugged me, told me he loved me. And he said, I don't doubt your passion. And he said, here's what I think happened with the match. And he was correct with it. And we agreed on it. He goes, what can we do? Because he wasn't blaming me. He was mad at the situation. And he bucked up to me. And, like a young, very impetuous guy, I bucked up to him.
Do you remember what match it was?
I do, but I don't want to say.
I understand. Yeah. I'm not being very pointed, because I know you like.
Yep, I do. Yeah.
Can you give us an idea what era that was of your career? Is this when you were working title matches in that era of your career?
It sure was. Yeah, I was working on top. I was working the last match.
Okay.
And it was during that era. Yes.
So when you talked about having sort of a what we might call in the South a come to Jesus meeting at TV with you and Vince and Kevin, was that in that same era, or is that a different point in your career?
That was slightly after.
Okay.
Slightly after. And I was a little bit bitter that I wasn't in the ring anymore, and I reacted wrong to a couple of emails. Emails don't denote tone.
That's right.
And so when you read something, you read it in the tone that you were in, kind of the mindset that you were in at the time.
Yes.
I read something in the wrong tone, and I reacted horribly to it. And once you do that, then shit's on, and then it tends to escalate, and it did. And we had to have a big come to Jesus meeting, and I was 100% wrong. I mean, make no mistake about it. I'm not just taking the fall here for it. I was 100% wrong. I read something wrong, and I responded in a very immature way. And when I got called in, I just felt I felt like shit. You got one of those things where you got to kind of buck up, and be a man.
Yeah.
But you're wrong. Yeah. And you're an asshole also. And I was both. And I walked in that meeting, and I'm trying to keep my pride, keep fighting, but I knew I was wrong and I was an asshole. And I walked in and Vince hugged me and said, let's sit down. Let's talk about it. He goes, I'm glad you're here. And what he did, I melted. I just like, I'm sorry. I'm 100% wrong. I reacted like a complete asshole, and I apologize. And that was pretty much it.
That's a teachable moment for everybody listening. Jeff and I talk about it all the time. Text and email are like the lowest form of communication. And a lot of times, because as you said, there's no tone to text. So there's no tone in the sender, and you're going to receive it however you receive it. But that's based on what's going on between your ears, not necessarily theirs. In person is the best way to communicate with issues, because I've never had an issue where tensions flare or whatever on text or email, but then we get in person and we can't just immediately just put our swords down and fix it.
Right. And that's 100% what it is. And I'm the same way. And from that day forward, I've never responded to a tough text by somebody, or what I thought was a tough text, with a tough text back. Now, occasionally, if I absolutely don't care who it is, might send something sharp or biting back, but that is very, very rare. I don't do that. I just don't do it. Not anymore. I learned my lesson that day. And if somebody sends a text that I think is sharp and biting and kind of smart ass or whatever it is, I just call them and see if that's what it was. And I've never had a time where that was sharp or biting or smart ass. They just wrote it real fast and wrote it in a way that I read it in a tone that was not there.
So we know that you are going to pop back up very briefly for a Royal Rumble 2014 cameo spot. That's always fun. But you really have, by and large, stayed retired. But we've seen some training videos with you beating up leprechauns and tackling dummies in your garage. I got to ask, are you officially all the way still retired? Or do you have in mind, perhaps, even though you said you didn't want a last match, do you think you might have one last match? Or where do you think now, as we're talking on August 11th, 2025?
The options are all open, and I'm not being coy at all. The options are all open. I mentioned before that I had something planned with TNA, and then the person that was there had changed the plan, and they didn't just anyway. I wouldn't do what was planned because I thought it was stupid, and the person was let go the next week, and so it turns out I would think I was right to not do it. You got to take care of yourself, and so there was something planned, but I want to clear up that with TNA. It wasn't something where I've talked with Tommy. I've talked with Carlos. They're good guys. I love those guys. They had nothing to do with it, and you never know. With TNA or with anybody else. And I was supposed to be doing something, perhaps at AAA, and WWE buys it. So, but I'm still doing something. I'm doing commentary. So I'm excited to be a part. Is there something that could happen in the future? Absolutely. 100%. I love wrestling. I absolutely love it. And to me, I don't care, Conrad, if there's 200 people there or 90,000. I enjoy walking out in front of them.
Yeah.
And some people say, hey, would you do this for yeah, if I want to do it, I'm going to do it. We can't pay much. I don't care. If I want to do it, I'm going to do it. But if they got 20,000 people there and I don't want to do it, I'm not doing it. Because I'm not going to do something that I think's not good for wrestling, not good for me, not good for somebody else, not good for anybody. So, yeah, is there a chance? 100%. Man, I got a training dummy out in my garage that Mr. Briscoe set me up with, a training mat. I've got some training stuff that I'm going to do coming up that's pretty cool with some wrestlers and some different stuff that Charlie Haas and Mr. Briscoe and a lot of guys, Jody Simon, Jody Malenko, have all set up for me to do some stuff. And I'm enjoying training. I got a little bit out of shape after I found out I wasn't doing anything with TNA. I'm working on now getting back in shape. And so I say you never know. I'm not being coy. I don't have a specific thing. I do have something that I may agree to in December. That's something down in Texas that may actually be across the border in Mexico. But I don't know. I'm having fun, and wherever that leads, I don't care. I want to have fun. I want to have fun, and I want to do cool stuff with fun people. And if that involves me getting back into doing something more physically, I'm fine with that. But I'm also fine with not doing it if it doesn't work out. I don't have, I'm just having a good time. People call me and say, hey, would you come to the show? And if it sounds like good people and fun people, then I'll do it. And again, I don't care if it's 200 people or if it's 90,000.
Folks, that's because, and I say this respectfully. Wait, have you seen The Gambler 2014 with John Goodman and Mark Wahlberg?
Yes, yes.
So he has a little rant, the John Goodman character does. I think his character's name is Frank. And he talks about FU money. He says, you know, everybody knows you get $2 million stored away. You pay cash for your house. You get a 30-year roof. You get a Japanese shitbox car. And that puts you in the position of FU. You can do whatever you want to do from then on. And nobody can tell you anything. So your boss wants to tell you to come to work. You don't want to, FU, blah, blah, blah. You have FU money now. I'm not saying that in a hashtag humble brag, but it doesn't matter if it's 80 people or 80,000. If you want to do it, you'll do it. And if you don't want to do it, you don't have to do it. And that's really the peace of mind that everybody should aspire to, right?
100%. And you should do the things you want to do. And sometimes you don't. I mean, sometimes, work is called work for a reason. Sometimes you got to show up and you got to pay the bills,
Yes.
And nobody has enough money, so I'm not saying I have enough money. I don't. Nobody has enough money, to live. I don't know how long I'm going to live. I'm 58. If I live as long as my dad and grandfather did, I'll live another 35, 40 years. But who knows? That's a long time to live. You got to have a lot of money to be able to live that long. No matter what your lifestyle is. That's a lot. That's another working life to live another 40 years or 35 years from now. Potentially, according to what my relatives and my family have lived. And so you say you always want to say I've got enough money to do whatever. I have enough money at least to say, and I don't want to sound arrogant. I hate when people say I have enough money. Nobody has enough money, but I have enough to do what I want.
Yes.
And when I'm working with people that I enjoy doing stuff with Ron Simmons. We had fun this weekend. We did something with Dan Hauser over the weekend. It was fun. We sat there and worked out the creative and had him come up and do some stuff. That was fun. And that's why I enjoy doing these things. I enjoy going to shows. I enjoy watching wrestling matches. I'll sit there and watch the whole card. I just enjoy it. I just enjoy the whole business. I will sit and watch Ron, and he'll sit over in a corner, and he'll just sit there and watch all the matches. And I will go over to him, how they going? And he'll tell me about every single match, about what they did right, what they did wrong, his opinion, and how good the match was, about how they got heat, how they didn't get heat, how so-and-so got up there and never established a babyface or a heel, or how they did. It's just fun for us. We love the business. And it's so fun at age 58 to still be a part.
And John, not to shoehorn in something, but I know you've mentioned it in passing before. I think one of the biggest reasons you've been able to do what you want to do is because you have no debt. You've always aspired to have no debt. Even now, and for as long as I've known you, you've never had any debt, like whether it's a house, a car, or a credit card, there's no debt. And that's a big piece of being able to say, I'm going to do what I want to do. Right.
That's right. 100%. And when I first got into business, thank God, man, I was around people that first thing they told me, everybody told me this, buy your house, buy your house. Ron Simmons used to always tell me, buy your home. It doesn't have to be a big home, doesn't be small, whatever it is, buy your freaking home. You don't pump gas anymore, except from in the Northeast, when they're still trying to make money off gas pumps. But you just always say you can pump gas and pay your bills if you have your home. I haven't had debt in 20 years. I bet you. I bought a very simple house when I first started. And so I've never had debt. And that frees you up to do so much to not have debt. Stan Hansen once told me, he said, don't buy a boat. That's what he always told me. And what he's saying is don't buy something that's unnecessary. He's not saying don't buy a boat. If you want to buy a boat, buy a damn boat. What he's saying is don't buy a bunch of extra shit you don't need. And I never got into all the toys. I never get into all the stuff. I spend money, like anybody does, and I have fun, and I, think I tip well, but but I don't have any debt. And not having debt, it's an old wrestler's mantra. Buy your home and buy your cars, because you never know what's going to happen, because we didn't have contracts back then. And that mindset has always stuck with me.
Well, you're preaching to the choir here, because at savewithconrad.com, that's exactly what we do. I'm going to talk to you like other bankers in the mortgage business won't. A lot of people don't know this, but even the word mortgage is Latin for pledge until death. A mortgage was designed to get 29% of your gross monthly income every month until you die. Well, I've looked at mortgages and debt almost like my grandfather did snakes. He used to say, son, the only good snake's a dead snake. Well, I don't know about all that, but there is no such thing as good debt, especially if you're a small business owner, especially if you're a mom and dad who are just trying to provide for your kids. Don't get yourself over leveraged. If you find somebody who's working well past their working age, maybe they're a Walmart greeter at 70 or 80, let me tell you, it's probably not because there's a Lexus in the parking lot they're making payments on. It's because they still have a house payment. And I want you to start with the end in mind. I want you to really think about this. How old am I going to be when I pay my house off? If you don't know the answer to that, maybe you haven't done enough planning. Maybe you should give me a call at 888-425-0105. Let's just talk about what your short-term goals are. Let's talk about what your long-term goals are. Priority number one, let's get out of debt. If you're carrying around credit card debt, it's not a matter of if I can save you money. It's a matter of how much. As they say in the South, man, the interest you're paying is higher than giraffe. You know what? You know you can do better. Not only is it sky high, it's also not tax deductible. But the interest on your mortgage is tax deductible. And I'm talking to you if you're in a 30-year loan. It's not a matter of if you can save money. It's a matter of how much. And I don't give a dang how much your interest rate is. The real killer is in the term. If you've ever seen an amortization schedule, you'll see that your interest is front loaded. I'm not trying to trick you into starting all over. I'm trying to reduce what's known as your total of payments. I'm routinely saving people who listen to this podcast more than $100,000 worth of unnecessary interest. Now, you can keep doing what you've been doing, work for all that money, and then just give it to a nameless, faceless banker, or you can give it to your family. Get out of debt faster with cheaper monthly payments right now at savewithconrad.com. You don't need perfect credit or money out of your pocket to do this. And I don't give a dang if you just filed bankruptcy last month. You need a plan. Let's get together a short-term plan and a long-term plan to accomplish your goals. And let me guess what they are. You'd like to retire on time. Well, right now, does your mortgage pay off when you're 62, 65, or are you on the work forever plan? Get yourself in a position to where you can do what you want to do at savewithconrad.com. NMLS number 2129, savewithconrad.com. So I can't believe this is real, but our crack producer here, Dave Silva, who definitely uses Surfshark VPN, but only for wrestling content, he has found a way for us to compare JBL, John Cena, and Tom Brady. Take a look at this. I see it. Y'all are related. I don't know how you don't just run into each other at the family reunions, John.
Holy cow. Hey, talk about having enough money. I wish I had those guys' money. Now, those guys are wealthy. They talk about the difference between being just well off and wealthy. Those guys are wealthy.
My goodness.
And good for them. They both seem like great guys, and they both are incredible performers. Talk about big game Tom and big game John.
That's like Peacemaker 2 and 3 right there. Alex Hall GB says, was there ever a memorable moment where you just had to break character for a fan because the situation depended on it? Love John on this show. Keep the chair. I like that. Have you had to break character before when you didn't mean to, but the situation warranted that you had to?
Oh yeah. Because I have a real passion for kids, and for the helping kids. It's one of the reasons I have, working with these charities with at-risk kids. And so when the mom will come up with the kids, I would always be a heel. Some way I would figure out. Taker used to do this. He would send them like a picture through an intermediary. so I remember one time I had somebody want to take a picture with me, and I blew them off, and I sent a word to the lady. I said, hey, meet me around the corner. And we're around the corner. I said, look, I can't do this in front of people. I'm a bad guy. And I'll still take a picture of you and your kids. She goes, oh, thank you. I said, do not tell anybody. so yeah, there are times that I broke character.
We got another question we need to hit here. This is from AOTV Productions. It says, hashtag We Want Cross is #1 trending on social media. Do you think it'll lead to something? Yeah. Hey man, if he's still trending this morning, I can't imagine that's going to slow down anytime soon. Where do you think we see him next if you were a betting man and you had to guess, John?
If I'm a betting man, I would think we'd see him. You know what? I don't know. But my bet would be something like, something like a GCW. I would, there's something this weekend, by the way, I got to bring up, me and, I am a juggalo.
Yeah.
And me and Ron both are juggalos. So the juggalos are JCW Wrestling versus GCW is this weekend at the Gathering. So big event coming up, but I'd love to see Karen at something like that. Something, what I'd like to see him. I don't know if I will see him, but I think with all this, you got to capitalize on this. You got a finite window here of where fans want you. You got to figure out a way to give them what they want and to increase that and make something out of it where you make money off of it.
Well, I can't wait to see what's next for Karrion Kross, and I can't wait to see what we talk about, but we're going to be doing it live next week right here at Something to Wrestle With John Layfield?